poor girl tells the CO, "Please, can you read this letter? It's very urgent." The CO read the letter and he started crying. Hello everyone, welcome to our story. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. 9-year-old Mary Carter stood in the middle of the shiny marble floor, her tiny hands holding a wrinkled white envelope against her chest as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Behind Mary's big brown eyes was a kind of bravery that didn't match her small size or her faded pink jacket. She had traveled across the city all by herself, figured out which buses to take and found this tall, scary building. All because her sick mother had asked her to. Mary wasn't just a little girl. She was a warrior in sneakers. The morning sun tried to break through the gray Seattle clouds, making the glass windows of the Williams Tower sparkle like diamonds. The building stretched 40 stories high into the sky, so tall that Mary had to bend her head all the way back to see the top when she stood outside. Inside the lobby, everything was fancy and expensive. Business people in suits rushed past like they were in a race, their shoes clicking on the floor like tap dancers. Nobody seemed to notice the small girl standing there, holding her letter and trying to be brave. Mary walked up to the big desk where a woman with red hair and glasses sat typing on a computer. The desk was so high that Mary had to stand on her tiptoes just to see over it. "Excuse me, ma'am," Mary said softly. The woman, whose name tag said Linda Mitchell, looked down and gasped in surprise. "Oh my. Hello there, sweetie. Are you lost? Where's your mommy?" Mary shook her head quickly, making her ponytail swing back and forth. "I'm not lost. I need to give this letter to the most important man who works here. My mom said it's very, very urgent." She held up the envelope with both hands, showing Linda the name written on it in careful handwriting. Johnson Williams, Sir, urgent and personal. Linda's eyebrows went up. She looked around the lobby, not sure what to do. This had never happened before. "Honey, what's your name?" "Mary Carter. And this letter is for Mr. Williams. My mom wrote it and she said I have to make sure he reads it today because—" Mary's voice got quieter and sadder. "Because she might not be strong enough to write another one." Something about the way Mary said those words made Linda's heart feel heavy. She could see that Mary was trying very hard not to cry. The little girl's hands were shaking, but she kept holding that envelope tight. "Sweetheart, Mr. Williams is a very busy man," Linda said gently. "He has meetings all day long. Maybe I could give him the letter for you?" "No," Mary said louder than she meant to. Then softer, "Please? My mom said I have to give it to him myself. She said it's the most important thing I'll ever do. She said this letter might save us both." Linda felt a lump form in her throat. Something about this little girl's desperate hope touched something deep inside her. Even though it was against all the rules, she picked up her phone and called the very top floor of the building. 40 floors above the lobby, in an office so high it felt like touching the clouds, Johnson Williams sat behind a massive desk made of dark, polished wood. Big windows surrounded him on 3 sides, showing the whole city of Seattle spread out below, the gray water of the bay, the boats, the streets, the buildings. But Johnson barely looked at the view anymore. He'd stopped noticing beautiful things a long time ago. At 35 years old, Johnson was one of the most powerful men in Seattle. He owned the biggest real estate company in the city. He bought and sold buildings worth millions of dollars. He wore suits that cost more than some people earned in a month. His dark hair was perfectly combed, his tie was perfectly straight, and his office was perfectly clean, not a single thing out of place. But if you looked closely at Johnson's eyes, you'd see they were tired. Sad even. His office had awards on the walls and expensive furniture, but there were no pictures of smiling people. No photos of family or friends. Just cold, empty success. Johnson was reading a boring report when his phone buzzed. "Mr. Williams," Linda's voice came through the speaker. "I have a very unusual situation in the lobby. There's a little girl here who says she must deliver a letter to you personally. She says it's urgent." Johnson's face became hard and annoyed. "Linda, you know I don't have time for this. I have 3 meetings this afternoon." "Sir," Linda said, and her voice sounded different, worried and serious, "I really think you should see this child. The letter says personal and urgent, and this little girl, there's something special about this situation. She came all the way here by herself." Johnson closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. He was tired. He was busy. He didn't want to deal with whatever this was. But Linda had worked for him for 6 years and had never asked him to do something like this before. "Fine," he said, his voice sharp like a knife. "Send her up. But make it quick." Linda took Mary's hand gently. "Come on, sweetie. Mr. Williams will see you." Mary's eyes went wide. "Really? He will?" "Yes. We're going to take a special elevator all the way to the top floor. As they walked across the lobby toward the shiny silver elevator doors, Mary looked around with wonder. Everything sparkled and gleamed. There were paintings on the walls and plants bigger than she was. A waterfall made of glass and metal poured water down one wall with a peaceful trickling sound. "Is Mr. Williams nice?" Mary asked quietly as they stepped into the elevator. Linda thought about how to answer that. "He's very serious. And very busy. But I think deep down he has a good heart. He just forgot where he put it." The elevator zoomed up so fast that Mary's stomach felt funny, like when you go down a big hill. She watched the numbers light up. 10, 20, 30, 38, 39, 40. Ding. The doors opened onto a quiet hallway with thick carpet that was so soft Mary's footsteps made no sound. Everything up here was even fancier than the lobby. The walls were painted a calm gray color, and more expensive artwork hung everywhere. At the end of the hall was a big wooden door with gold letters. "Johnson Williams, Chief Executive Officer." "Are you ready?" Linda asked. Mary squeezed the envelope tighter and nodded, even though her heart was beating so fast it felt like a drum in her chest. She thought about her mom lying in the hospital bed at home, so weak and tired. Her mom had held Mary's face in both hands that morning and said, "You're my brave girl. I know you can do this." Linda knocked on the door. "Come in," said a deep voice from inside. The door opened and Mary stepped into the biggest office she'd ever seen. It was like a whole apartment. The windows showed the entire city. But Mary barely noticed the view. Her eyes went straight to the man behind the desk. Johnson Williams stood up slowly. He was tall, really tall. He wore a dark suit and a blue tie. His face was handsome but serious, with lines around his eyes that made him look tired. And his eyes were the same dark brown color as Mary's own eyes. The same shape. The same way of looking at things. Johnson stared at Mary and something strange happened to his face. All the annoyed, busy expression melted away. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened slightly. He looked like someone who'd just seen a ghost. Because Mary looked exactly like him. The same eyes. The same serious eyebrows. The same little dimple in the chin. Even the same way of standing with shoulders back, trying to be brave when scared. The room became so quiet that Mary could hear her own breathing. "Mr. Williams," Linda said from the doorway, "this is Mary Carter. She has a letter for you." But Johnson didn't seem to hear Linda. He couldn't stop staring at Mary. Mary took 3 brave steps forward. Her sneakers squeaked a little on the floor. She held out the envelope with both hands. "My mom sent me," Mary said, her voice small but steady. "Her name is Clara Carter. She said you knew her a long time ago. She said you might not want to read this, but please, sir, it's very, very urgent. My mom is really sick. The doctors say..." Mary's voice cracked, but she kept going. "The doctors say she doesn't have much time left." Johnson's hand reached out, moving slowly like he was in a dream. He took the envelope. His fingers were shaking just a tiny bit. His name was written on the front in handwriting he knew. Handwriting he'd seen on birthday cards and love notes 8 years ago, before everything fell apart. Clara's handwriting. "Clara," Johnson whispered, so quietly Mary almost didn't hear him. "You do remember her." Mary's face lit up with hope, like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Johnson looked at the envelope, then at Mary, then back at the envelope. His heart was pounding. Clara. After 8 years of silence. 8 years of trying to forget her. 8 years of believing she had betrayed him and left him for another man. But now here was this little girl with his eyes, his face, calling Clara Mom. How old are you?" Johnson asked. "I'm 9, Mary said. "I'll be 10 in March." 9 years old. Johnson did the math quickly in his head. 9 years ago he and Clara had still been together. 9 years ago, before Veronica told him that Clara had cheated on him. Before Clara disappeared from his life. Could it be possible? "Will you read it?" Mary asked, her voice full of hope and fear. "Please?" Johnson's throat felt tight. He nodded slowly. Mary reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper with a phone number written in crayon. "This is my mom's number. In case you want to call after you read the letter. She's at home. She's too sick to work anymore." She put the paper on Johnson's desk very carefully, like it was something precious. Then Mary did something that made Johnson's heart crack just a little. She looked up at him with those big brown eyes, his eyes, and said, "My mom told me you were a good man. She said you might have forgotten how to be happy, but you were still good inside. I think she's right." Before Johnson could respond, Mary turned and walked toward the door. Linda was waiting there, ready to take her back downstairs. "Mary," Johnson called out. She stopped and looked back. "How did you get here? Did someone bring you?" "I took 2 buses," Mary said proudly. "Mom drew me a map and helped me practice the route. It took almost 2 hours, but I found it all by myself." 2 hours? Alone? Johnson felt something cold settle in his stomach. That's not safe for a little girl. Mary shrugged, trying to look braver than she felt. "Mom said this letter was important enough to be brave for. She said sometimes you have to do scary things for the people you love." And then she was gone, the door closing softly behind her. Johnson stood alone in his big, cold office. The letter felt heavy in his hands, heavier than paper should feel. Outside the windows, Seattle looked gray and distant. But Johnson didn't see the city. He only saw a little girl with his eyes, telling him her mother was dying. Slowly, his hands still shaking, he sat down in his leather chair. He turned the envelope over and carefully opened it. Inside was a letter written in Clara's neat, careful handwriting. As Johnson began to read, his whole world started to crumble and rebuild itself at the same time. "Dear Johnson, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll even let Mary into your building. But I'm writing anyway because I'm running out of time, and there are truths you deserve to know. Truths I should have fought harder to tell you 8 years ago. I'll start with the most important one. Mary is your daughter." Johnson's hands tightened on the paper. His heart hammered against his ribs like it was trying to break free. "I know what you're thinking. You're remembering what Veronica told you, that I cheated on you with Daniel, that I betrayed you, that I left you for another man." "Johnson, none of it was true. Not one word. I never cheated on you. I never wanted anyone but you. But by the time I found out I was pregnant, you had already shut me out completely. You wouldn't take my calls. You wouldn't see me. Your assistant said you never wanted to hear from me again. I tried, Johnson. I tried so many times to tell you about the baby. I came to your office 6 times in 3 months. Security wouldn't let me up. I sent letters, I don't know if you ever got them. I left voicemails that were never returned. Eventually, I had to accept that you'd made your choice. You believed I had betrayed you and nothing I said would change your mind. So I did what I had to do. I had Mary alone. I raised her alone. And I never told her about you because I couldn't bear to see her heart break the way mine did. But now I'm dying, Johnson. Stage 4 cancer. The doctors give me maybe 3 or 4 months if I'm lucky. And I can't leave this world knowing Mary will be alone. She has no other family. Her grandmother, my mother, died 2 years ago. There's no one else. I'm not asking you to love me again. That ship sailed 8 years ago. But I'm begging you, to get to know your daughter. To take care of her when I'm gone. She's smart and funny and brave. She's the best thing I ever did in my life. And she deserves better than the foster care system. If you don't believe she's yours, do a DNA test. I welcome it. I have nothing to hide and nothing to lose anymore. One more thing you should know. Veronica lied to you. About everything. I don't know why she did it or what she had to gain, but she orchestrated our breakup. She showed you fake photos, told you fake stories, poisoned you against me. I didn't learn this until years later, but by then it was too late. You'd moved on. You'd built a life with her. Maybe you won't believe this either. Maybe you'll think I'm just a bitter ex trying to cause problems. But ask yourself this. In 8 years, did Veronica ever make you truly happy? Or did she just make you forget how to feel anything at all? I'm not trying to ruin your life, Johnson. I'm trying to save Mary's. Please. If you ever loved me, if any part of you remembers what we had, please don't let our daughter grow up alone. The girl who still loves you, Clara. P.S. Mary doesn't know you're her father yet. I wanted you to have the choice to be in her life before I told her. Don't break her heart, Johnson. She's already going to lose her mother. Don't let her lose her father too. Johnson read the letter 3 times. Then 4. His eyes burned, but he didn't cry. He'd forgotten how to cry years ago. Veronica had taught him that tears were weakness. But his hands were shaking so badly now that the paper rattled. Mary is your daughter. The words echoed in his head like thunder. He thought about the little girl who just left his office. Her brown eyes. Her serious expression. The way she stood with her shoulders back trying to be brave. The dimple in her chin that matched his own. She looked exactly like the baby photos of him that his mother kept in old albums. Johnson's mind raced backward through time. 8 years ago he'd been happy. Truly, deeply happy for the first time in his adult life. He'd been dating Clara Carter for 2 years and he'd been planning to propose. He'd already bought the ring, a simple diamond on a gold band because Clara didn't like flashy things. Then Veronica, his business partner's sister, had come to him with photos. Photos that appeared to show Clara with another man, Daniel Brooks. Photos of them laughing together, holding hands, kissing outside a restaurant. "I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this," Veronica had said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "But I thought you deserved to know the truth. Clara's been seeing Daniel for months. Everyone knows but you." Johnson had been devastated. Destroyed. He'd confronted Clara over the phone, refusing to see her in person because he couldn't bear to look at her lying face. "It's not what you think," Clara had cried. "Johnson, please just let me explain." "Explain what?" he'd shouted. "I've seen the photos, Clara. I'm not an idiot. Those photos are fake, or taken out of context. Daniel is just a friend from college who was in town. We had coffee one time and someone must have." "Stop lying to me," Johnson had roared. "Just stop. We're done. Don't call me again. Don't come to my office. Don't contact me ever again. It's over." He'd hung up on her while she was still crying, still trying to explain. And then Veronica had been there. Veronica with her perfect makeup and her designer clothes and her cold, calculating mind. She'd comforted him, taken him out for drinks, helped him move on. Within 6 months they were dating. Within a year she'd moved into his penthouse. And for 8 years she'd been by his side, slowly turning him into the cold, emotionless businessman he'd become. Johnson stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward and hitting the window with a thud. He paced across his office, his mind spinning. Had Veronica really lied? Had she manufactured the whole thing? He remembered now, things that hadn't seemed important at the time. How Veronica had always been around after the breakup, almost like she'd been waiting for it. How she'd discouraged him every time he'd thought about calling Clara. How she'd thrown away letters that came to the apartment without letting him see who they were from. Just junk mail, she'd always said. Nothing important. But what if some of those letters had been from Clara? What if she'd been trying to tell him about Mary, and Veronica had hidden the messages? Johnson's phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. "Running late for dinner. Meet me at Cascades at 7 instead of 6:30. He stared at the message. Veronica. His girlfriend of 8 years. The woman he'd built his life around, even though something inside him had always felt wrong, empty, incomplete. Did she really lie about everything? Johnson looked down at Clara's letter again, at the phone number written in crayon by a 9-year-old girl who'd crossed the city alone to deliver it. His daughter. Maybe his daughter. He needed to know the truth. Johnson grabbed his suit jacket from the back of his chair and his keys from the desk. He pressed the intercom button. "Linda, cancel all my meetings for the rest of the day." "Sir?" Linda sounded shocked. Johnson never canceled meetings. Never. "But you have the Henderson deal at 3 and the board conference at 4. "Cancel them," Johnson said firmly. "Reschedule everything. Something urgent has come up." "Is everything okay, Mr. Williams?" Johnson looked at Mary's phone number, written in shaky crayon numbers. "I don't know yet. But I'm about to find out." He left his office, stride long and purposeful. The elevator ride down felt like it took forever. His mind kept showing him images of Mary, her brave little face, her trembling hands holding that letter, her words, "My mom told me you were a good man." When he reached the lobby, Linda was at her desk. She looked up, surprised to see him. "Mr. Williams? Did you need something?" "That little girl, Mary. How long ago did she leave?" Linda checked her watch. "About 20 minutes ago. She said she was going to catch the bus back home." "Which direction?" She walked toward 3rd Avenue. The number 12 bus stop. Johnson was already moving toward the doors. 20 minutes. She might still be there. Seattle buses could be slow during lunch hour. He burst out of the building into the gray afternoon. The air was cold and damp, threatening rain. He turned toward 3rd Avenue and started walking fast, his expensive shoes clicking on the sidewalk. Please still be there, he thought. Please don't be gone yet. He reached the bus stop and scanned the small crowd of people waiting. At first he didn't see her. His heart sank. But then, there. Sitting on the bench, her pink jacket standing out against the gray surroundings. Mary was there, her backpack on her lap, her legs swinging because they were too short to reach the ground. She was crying. Not loud, dramatic crying. Quiet, sad crying, the kind that breaks your heart because you can see the person is trying so hard to be brave but just can't anymore. Tears ran down her cheeks and she wiped them away with the sleeve of her jacket. Johnson walked over slowly. "Mary?" She looked up, gasping. Her eyes went wide with shock. "Mr. Williams? Why are you here?" Johnson sat down on the bench beside her, not caring that his expensive suit was getting wet from the damp seat. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. She had his nose, his eyebrows, even the way her ears curved at the top. "I read the letter," he said quietly. Mary's lip trembled. "And, are you going to help my mom?" "Mary, I need to ask you something important. Can you be honest with me?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Your mom, Clara, did she ever tell you who your father is?" Mary shook her head. "She said she'd tell me when I was older. She said he was a good man who made a mistake and that someday maybe I'd get to meet him. But she always looked really sad when she talked about it, so I stopped asking." Johnson's throat felt tight. "What if I told you that I might be your father?" Mary's eyes went huge. She stared at him, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. You're my? But how? Why didn't you? Does that mean Mom didn't lie? Does that mean you'll help her?" The questions tumbled out in a rush and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but these were different tears. Confused tears. Hopeful tears. "I don't know anything for certain yet," Johnson said carefully. "But I'm going to find out. And Mary? No matter what, I'm going to make sure your mom gets the medical care she needs. I promise you that." "Really?" Mary's voice was so small, so full of desperate hope that it physically hurt Johnson to hear it. "Really?" he said firmly. "Now come on. Let's get you home. I need to talk to your mother." Mary suddenly threw her arms around Johnson's waist, hugging him tight. "Thank you," she whispered into his expensive suit jacket. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Johnson froze. He couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged him. Veronica wasn't affectionate. His business associates certainly didn't hug. His own parents had died years ago. Slowly, carefully, he put one arm around Mary's small shoulders. Something inside his chest, something that had been frozen solid for 8 years, cracked just a little bit. Johnson's car was parked in the executive garage beneath the building. It was a sleek black Mercedes, the kind that cost more than most people's houses. Mary's eyes went wide when she saw it. "This is your car?" she breathed. "It's so shiny." "Come on," Johnson said, opening the passenger door for her. "Tell me your address." As Mary climbed into the seat, so big her feet barely touched the floor, she recited the address carefully, like she'd memorized it for emergencies. 432 Maple Street, apartment 2B. It's in the Greenwood neighborhood. Johnson knew that area. It wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't fancy either. Small apartment buildings, aging homes, working-class families. A world away from his penthouse downtown. He started the car and pulled out of the garage. As they drove through the city, Mary pressed her face against the window, watching everything pass by. "Mom used to have a car," she said quietly. "But she had to sell it last year when she got too sick to work. That's why I had to take the bus today." "What does your mom do?" "For work, I mean?" Johnson asked, keeping his eyes on the road. "She used to be a teacher. 3rd grade. She loved it so much. But when the cancer came back, she couldn't work anymore. The kids were too loud and standing all day made her too tired." Mary's voice got sadder. "Now she just stays home. Sometimes her friend Nicole comes to check on her when I'm at school." "The cancer came back?" Johnson's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You mean she had it before?" Mary nodded. "When I was 6. She got really sick, but the doctors fixed her. She was better for almost 2 years. We thought it was gone forever." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But it came back 3 months ago. And this time the doctors say it's in too many places. They say the treatment costs too much money, and even if we had the money, it might not work." Johnson felt anger rising in his chest. Not at Mary. Not even at Clara. At himself. At the universe. At the unfairness of it all. If Mary really was his daughter, and looking at her, he was becoming more certain by the minute, then Clara had been raising their child alone for 9 years. Teaching while pregnant. Having a baby without him there. Fighting cancer not once but twice, all while taking care of a little girl by herself. And where had he been? Living in luxury with Veronica, believing lies, building walls around his heart. "We're here," Mary said, pointing to a 3-story brick building that had seen better days. The paint was peeling in places and the front steps were cracked. But there were flower boxes in some windows, and a child's bike chained to the railing showed that families lived here, tried to make it home. Johnson parked on the street and got out. Mary scrambled out of her seat and ran to the building entrance, pulling a key on a string from around her neck. "This way," she said, unlocking the door. "We're on the 2nd floor." The hallway inside smelled like old carpet and someone's cooking, maybe soup or stew. The walls were a faded yellow, and the stairs creaked under Johnson's feet. But it was clean. Someone had swept recently, and there were no trash or broken things lying around. At apartment 2B, Mary stopped. She looked up at Johnson with worried eyes. "Mom doesn't know I went to see you," she whispered. "She thought I was at school. She's going to be really mad at me for skipping." "Let me handle that part," Johnson said. "Just open the door." Mary unlocked it slowly. "Mom?" she called out. "Mom, I'm home. And I brought someone." "Mary?" A woman's voice came from inside, weak but worried. "Sweetheart, why are you home so early? Are you sick?" They walked into a small living room. The furniture was old but well cared for. There were photos on every wall. Mary as a baby, Mary's first day of school, Mary blowing out birthday candles. The apartment was tiny, maybe 1/10 the size of Johnson's penthouse, but it felt like a home. Like love lived here. A woman appeared in the doorway of what must have been the bedroom. She was leaning against the frame like she needed it to hold her up. And Johnson's world stopped spinning. Claire. 8 years had passed, but he would have recognized her anywhere. Her hair was shorter now, and there were dark circles under her eyes that spoke of pain and sleepless nights. She'd lost weight, too much weight. Her skin was pale, almost gray. She wore sweatpants and an oversized sweater that hung on her thin frame. But her eyes, those beautiful green eyes, were exactly the same. Clara saw him and all the color drained from her face. She grabbed the doorframe harder. "Johnson," she whispered. It wasn't a question. Just his name, spoken like a prayer and a curse at the same time. "Hello, Clara," Johnson said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. Mary looked between them, sensing the tension in the air. "Mom, I'm sorry. I know you didn't want me to go yet, but I thought." "You went to see him?" Clara's eyes went wide. "Mary, you promised you'd wait until—" She stopped, pressing a hand to her chest. She was breathing hard, like just standing was difficult. "Mom?" Mary rushed to her side. "Sit down, please. You're supposed to stay in bed." Clara let Mary guide her to the couch. She sat down slowly, carefully, like every movement hurt. And Johnson realized with a cold shock just how sick she really was. This wasn't someone with a bad flu. This was someone dying. "You shouldn't have come," Clara said to Johnson, but there was no anger in her voice. Just sadness. And maybe a little bit of hope that she was trying to hide. "I sent the letter, but I didn't expect. I didn't think you'd actually—" "She's mine, isn't she?" Johnson said quietly. He sat down in the armchair across from the couch. "Mary. She's my daughter." Clara's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "Yes, she's yours. She's always been yours." Mary gasped. She looked at Johnson, then at her mother, then back at Johnson. "He asked my dad? For real?" "For real, baby," Clara whispered. "But why didn't you tell me?" Mary's voice was confused and hurt. "Why didn't you tell him? Why have I never met him before today?" Clara reached out and took Mary's hand. "It's complicated, sweetheart. Adult stuff. Misunderstandings and mistakes and people who told lies." She looked at Johnson. "But none of it was your father's fault. He didn't know about you. I tried to tell him, but circumstances kept us apart." Johnson leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Clara, I need to understand. The letter said Veronica lied about everything. About you and Daniel. About you cheating. Was any of it real?" Clara shook her head. "None of it. Daniel was an old college friend who came to Seattle for a business conference. We had coffee one afternoon, one time, Johnson. Just coffee. We talked about old times, about his new job in Boston, about nothing important. Someone must have taken pictures and given them to Veronica. Or maybe she hired someone to take them. I don't know. Why would she do that?" Johnson asked, but even as he said it, pieces were clicking into place in his mind. "Because she wanted you," Clara said simply. "She'd always wanted you. Even when we were together, I could see the way she looked at you at company parties. Like you were a prize to be won. And when she saw her chance to get rid of me..." Clara's voice broke. "She took it. She destroyed us." Johnson felt sick. 8 years. 8 years of his life built on lies. 8 years with a woman who had manipulated and deceived him from the very beginning. 8 years of missing his daughter's life. Her first steps, her first words, her first day of school, every birthday, every Christmas. "I tried to tell you I was pregnant," Clara continued, wiping her eyes. "I called. I came to your office. I sent letters. But you wouldn't see me. You'd made up your mind that I was a liar and a cheater, and nothing I said made any difference." "I'm sorry," Johnson said, and the words felt completely inadequate. "Clara, I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have let you explain. We were both young," Clara said quietly. Aunt Veronica was very, very good at what she did. She knew exactly how to manipulate you, exactly which buttons to push. I don't blame you for believing her. She was convincing. Mary had been listening to all of this with wide eyes. Now she spoke up, her voice small and scared. So what happens now? Are you going to be my dad for real? Or are you just here because Mom asked you to be? Johnson looked at this little girl, his daughter, sitting there scared and hopeful and trying so hard to be brave. He thought about Clara, dying in this small apartment with no money for treatment. He thought about the letter written in desperate hope. He thought about Veronica and her lies and the 8 years he'd wasted. And he made a decision. Mary, he said, looking directly into her brown eyes, his eyes, I'm going to be your dad. Not because your mom asked me to. Because I want to be. Because you're my daughter and I've missed 9 years of your life that I can never get back. But I'm not going to miss any more. Mary burst into tears, big, gulping, happy tears. She ran across the room and threw herself into Johnson's arms. He caught her and held her tight, and this time he didn't freeze. This time he hugged her back with everything he had. Over Mary's head, Johnson looked at Clara. And I'm going to get you the best medical care in the country. Whatever you need, doctors, treatments, specialists, money is no object. I don't care what it costs. Clara was crying too now, but she was shaking her head. Johnson, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you. You're going to fight this, Clara. And you're going to win. Because Mary needs her mother. And I. His voice caught. I need to make this right. Let me make this right. Clara nodded, unable to speak. The hope in her eyes was almost painful to see. Johnson pulled out his phone with one hand, still holding Mary with the other. He dialed a number from memory. Dr. Peterson? This is Johnson Williams. I need you to clear your schedule. Yes, I know it's short notice. I have someone who needs the best oncologist in Seattle, and I need them to see her today. No, not me. Someone very important. Her name is Clara Carter, and she has stage 4 cancer. I'll pay whatever it costs. Thank you. I'll have her at your office in 2 hours. He hung up and looked at Clara. Dr. Peter Peterson. He's the head of oncology at Seattle Medical Center. He's the best in the state, maybe the best in the country. He's going to see you today, run tests, and figure out a treatment plan. Johnson, I look terrible. I can't go to a doctor's office like this. I need to. You look fine, Johnson said firmly. And we don't have time to waste. Can you walk to the car, or do I need to carry you? Despite everything, Clara laughed. A weak, watery laugh, but a real one. I can walk. I'm sick, not helpless. Mom's really sick though, Mary said quietly, still in Johnson's arms. Sometimes she falls down. Yesterday she fainted in the kit, Margaret. Johnson's jaw tightened. Then I'm definitely carrying her. Johnson, Clara started to protest. Don't argue with me, Clara. For once in your life, just let someone take care of you. And something in his voice, something protective and determined and maybe even a little bit loving, made Clara stop arguing. 20 minutes later, they were in Johnson's Mercedes heading toward Seattle Medical Center. Clara sat in the passenger seat, wrapped in a blanket Mary had insisted she bring. Mary was in the back, leaning forward between the seats, chattering nervously. Is Dr. Peterson nice? She asked. Mom doesn't like mean doctors. The last one we saw said we should just accept reality, and he made Mom cry. Johnson's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. What was his name? Johnson, don't, Clara said quietly. He was just being honest. Stage 4 cancer has a very low survival rate. He was preparing us for giving up, Johnson interrupted. That's not being honest. That's being cruel. And Dr. Peterson is nothing like that. He believes in fighting until there's nothing left to fight with. They pulled into the medical center parking lot. It was a massive glass building, modern and expensive looking. Clara stared up at it through the window. I can't afford this, she whispered. Johnson, even one appointment here probably costs more than. I told you. Money is not an issue. He parked in a spot near the entrance marked reserved executive parking. Let's go. Inside, the lobby was pristine. Marble floors, abstract art on the walls, a reception desk that looked like it belonged in a 5-star hotel. Other patients sat in plush chairs, well-dressed, comfortable, like they belonged here. Clara suddenly felt very conscious of her sweatpants and the way she had to lean on Johnson's arm to walk. Mr. Williams. A woman in a crisp white coat approached them, smiling warmly. Dr. Peterson is ready for you. Please come this way. They followed her down a hallway to a private office. Inside, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair stood up from behind a desk. His eyes were kind, intelligent. "Johnson," he said, shaking hands. "It's been too long. And you must be Clara." He turned to her, and his expression shifted to professional concern. "Please sit down. You look exhausted." Clara sank into the chair gratefully. Mary immediately went to her side, holding her hand. Dr. Peterson was making notes. "How long has this been going on?" 3 months, Clara said. "The cancer came back 3 months ago. It's in my lungs, my liver, and they think it might have spread to my bones." "What treatment have you received so far?" Clara looked down. "Just pain medication. My insurance wouldn't cover the chemotherapy drugs the oncologist recommended. They said it was too expensive for the projected outcome. And I couldn't afford to pay out of pocket." Johnson made a sound like a growl. "Your insurance company decided you weren't worth saving?" "That's how it works when you're poor," Clara said simply. "They do a cost-benefit analysis. And I didn't benefit enough." Dr. Peterson's expression hardened. "Well, you're in my care now, and I don't do cost-benefit analyses on human lives. Clara, I'm going to run a full panel of tests today. Blood work, scans, everything. I need to see exactly what we're dealing with. It's going to take a few hours. Is that all right?" Clara nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, thank you. I don't know how to thank you." "Thank Johnson," Dr. Peterson said. "He's the one who made this happen." He pressed a button on his desk. "Nurse Williams, could you come in, please?" A young nurse appeared. "Mr. Williams, there's a family waiting room just down the hall. Why don't you and Mary wait there while we run the tests? It'll be more comfortable than sitting in the exam rooms." "I want to stay with Mom," Mary said immediately. Clara squeezed her hand. "Sweetheart, it's going to be boring. Lots of needles and machines and waiting around. Why don't you go with your dad? I'll be fine." "But what if you need me?" "I'll always need you," Clara said softly. "But right now, I need you to be brave and let the doctors do their job. Can you do that?" Mary hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. But you have to promise to come get us as soon as you're done." "I promise." Johnson and Mary followed Nurse Williams to the waiting room. It was nicer than most living rooms. Comfortable couches, a TV, a table with coloring books and puzzles for children, even a coffee machine and snacks. Mary went straight to the coloring books, but Johnson could see she was just flipping through them without really looking. Her mind was somewhere else, probably in one of those exam rooms with her mother. Johnson sat down on the couch and pulled out his phone. 3 missed calls from Veronica. Before he could decide whether to call her back, the phone buzzed in his hand. Veronica's name flashed on the screen. He answered. "Hello, Johnson? Finally. Where have you been? You left the office hours ago without a word. You've been ignoring my calls. What's going on?" Johnson glanced at Mary, who was watching him with those wide brown eyes. His eyes. "I'm at Seattle Medical Center." There was a pause. "What? Are you okay? What happened?" "I'm fine. I'm here with someone else." He took a breath. "Veronica, I need to tell you something. I have a daughter." Silence on the other end. Then, "What are you talking about?" "Her name is Mary. She's 9 years old. And she's mine." "Clara's daughter? My daughter?" "That's impossible," Veronica said, and Johnson could hear the edge of panic in her voice. "Clara left you 8 years ago. You never heard from her again. Because you made sure I didn't. The photos, the lies about her and Daniel, you orchestrated all of it, didn't you?" "Johnson, you're not making sense. You're clearly upset about something. Why don't you come home and we can talk about this calmly?" "I saw the letter, Veronica. Mary brought me Clara's letter. She told me everything. About the lies. About you manipulating me. About keeping me away from Clara when she was trying to tell me she was pregnant." "A letter?" Veronica's laugh was sharp, nervous. "Johnson, Clara is obviously trying to manipulate you. She probably needs money and figured she'd make up some story about you being the father of her child. You can't possibly believe." "I saw her, Veronica. I saw Mary. She looks exactly like me. Same eyes, same face. She's mine. So she looks like you. That doesn't prove anything. Johnson, please don't do something stupid because some woman from your past showed up with a convenient story and a child who..." "We're running a DNA test," Johnson said quietly. "We'll have proof soon enough. But I already know the truth. I can feel it." There was a long, dangerous silence. When Veronica spoke again, her voice had changed, harder, colder. "Where is Clara now?" "She's sick. Stage 4 cancer. That's why we're at the hospital. I'm getting her treatment." "You're paying for her treatment? Johnson, have you lost your mind?" Some woman you haven't seen in 8 years shows up with a sob story and you just throw money at her. She's not some woman. She's the mother of my child. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Johnson looked at Mary, who was trying very hard to pretend she wasn't listening to every word. I have to go, Veronica. We'll talk when I get home. Johnson, wait. He hung up. His hands were shaking slightly. That had gone about as well as he'd expected, which was to say, terribly. Mary was staring at him. She's mad, isn't she? The lady on the phone? Her name is Veronica. And yes, she's upset. But that's not your problem to worry about. Is she your girlfriend? Johnson hesitated. She lives with me. But that's going to change very soon. Before Mary could ask what he meant, the door opened and Dr. Peterson walked in, carrying a tablet and looking tired but satisfied. Good news, he said, sitting down across from them. Clara did very well with the tests. I have a clear picture of what we're dealing with now, and I'm confident we can start an aggressive treatment plan. What kind of treatment? Johnson asked. Combination therapy. Chemotherapy, targeted radiation, and an experimental immunotherapy drug that's showing promising results in advanced cases. It's not going to be easy on her. She'll be sick, exhausted, probably lose her hair. But it's our best shot at getting the cancer into remission. When can you start? Tomorrow. I want to admit her tonight for observation and to prep her system. She'll be hospitalized for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer depending on how she responds to the initial treatment. Johnson nodded. Whatever she needs. Dr. Peterson glanced at his tablet, then back at Johnson. His expression became more businesslike. I should mention the total cost of the treatment program, hospital stay, medications, procedures, follow-up care, will be somewhere in the range of $200,000 to $400,000. That's over the course of 6 months to a year, assuming everything goes according to plan. Does that present a problem? Mary gasped softly. Johnson heard her whisper, $400,000? Johnson didn't blink. No problem at all. I'll have my accountant set up direct billing to my personal account. Whatever Clara needs, whenever she needs it. Cost is not a concern. Dr. Peterson looked relieved. Good. Then I'll get the admission paperwork started. Clara should be able to see you both in about 30 minutes. She's getting settled into her room now. After Dr. Peterson left, Mary tugged on Johnson's sleeve. That's so much money. Like so much money. Your mother's life is worth more than money, Mary. But what if the treatment doesn't work? What if you spend all that money and she still... She couldn't finish the sentence. Johnson knelt down in front of her, taking her small hands in his. Then at least we'll know we did everything we could. We fought as hard as we could. And your mom won't have to suffer because someone decided her life wasn't worth the cost. Do you understand? Mary nodded, tears streaming down her face. You're a really good dad. The words hit Johnson like a punch to the chest. I'm trying to be. They spent 20 minutes with Clara in her hospital room. She looked small and fragile in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and IVs, but her eyes were brighter than they'd been at the apartment. Hope, Johnson realized. She had hope again. I'll bring Mary back tomorrow, Johnson told Clara. Right now, I need to take her home and get some things figured out. She can stay with my neighbor, Clara said weakly. Mrs. Margaret across the hall. She watches Mary sometimes when I have doctor appointments. Actually, Johnson said carefully, I was thinking Mary could stay with me, just while you're in the hospital. That way she's not a burden on your neighbor, and I can bring her to visit you every day. Clara's eyes widened. Johnson, you don't have to. I want to. Please, let me do this. Clara looked at Mary, who was nodding enthusiastically. Okay, she whispered. Okay. An hour later, Johnson and Mary were back at Clara's apartment, packing a bag of Mary's things. Clothes, toiletries, her favorite stuffed rabbit, some books. The apartment looked even smaller and sadder now that Johnson knew Clara had been living here for 9 years, struggling, barely surviving. Is this all you need? He asked as Mary zipped up her backpack. Yeah. I don't have much stuff. Johnson made a mental note. Tomorrow he'd take Mary shopping. Get her new clothes, whatever she needed. But tonight he had something else he needed to do. It was almost 8 o'clock when Johnson pulled into the underground garage of his building. His penthouse took up the entire top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, designer furniture. The kind of place that belonged in architecture magazines. Mary's eyes went wide as they stepped into the elevator. You live at the very top? I do. And now you do too, at least for a little while. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Veronica was waiting in the living room, pacing, a glass of wine in her hand. She turned when she heard them enter, and her eyes locked onto Mary. "So this is her," Veronica said, her voice cold. "The supposed daughter." "Her name is Mary," Johnson said firmly. "Mary, why don't you go pick out which bedroom you want to stay in? Down that hallway, any of the guest rooms." Mary looked between Johnson and Veronica nervously, then scurried down the hallway with her backpack. As soon as she was out of earshot, Veronica set down her wine glass with a sharp click. "What is she doing here?" "She's staying with me while her mother is in the hospital." "Johnson, you can't just bring a random child into our home." "She's not a random child. She's my daughter." "You don't know that. You've known about her existence for all of 5 hours and you're already reorganizing your entire life? Do you hear how insane that sounds?" Johnson studied Veronica. Really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years. The perfectly styled hair, the designer clothes, the calculated expressions. How had he never seen through her before? "I'm getting a DNA test done," he said calmly. "We'll have definitive proof in a few days." "And what if the test shows she's not yours? What then? You'll have gotten attached to some child who isn't even related to you. You'll have wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars on her mother's treatment. Clara is dying, Veronica. So, that's not your responsibility. You haven't seen that woman in 8 years. She made her choices and now she has to live with the consequences." "The consequences of your lies, you mean?" Veronica went very still. "Excuse me? Clara told me everything. About Daniel being just an old friend. About the photos being innocent. About you manipulating me, feeding me lies, keeping us apart. That's ridiculous. Clara is obviously trying to rewrite history to make herself look better. Is it true?" Johnson's voice was quiet but hard as steel. "Did you lie to me about Clara cheating?" Veronica's mask slipped, just for a second. Johnson saw calculation flash across her face, saw her weighing her options. Then she laughed, a brittle, defensive sound. "Of course I didn't lie. Johnson, Clara is manipulating you. She's sick, she's desperate, and she's using this child to get money out of you. Can't you see that? Then why are you so scared?" "I'm not scared. I'm concerned. Concerned that you're throwing away 8 years of our relationship for some fairy tale about a long-lost daughter. 8 years built on lies. I never lied to you." "Really?" Johnson pulled out his phone. "Because I've been thinking about it. About how convenient it was that you had those photos of Clara and Daniel ready to show me. About how you were always there with advice, always telling me Clara wasn't worth my time, always pushing me to forget about her. Because she was a cheater." Veronica's voice rose. "I was being a good friend, trying to protect you from getting hurt again." "Stop." Johnson held up his hand. "Just stop. I don't want to hear any more lies tonight. We'll finish this conversation tomorrow. Right now, I need to make sure Mary is settled." "So that's it? You're just going to ignore me for some child you met today?" "That child is my daughter. And yes, right now, she's my priority." Veronica's face twisted with something ugly, rage, jealousy, desperation all mixed together. "You're making a huge mistake, Johnson. When that DNA test comes back and proves that little girl isn't yours, don't come crying to me." "I won't," Johnson said quietly. "Because even if by some miracle she wasn't mine, which she is, I still wouldn't come back to you. Not after learning what you did. Not after seeing who you really are." He walked away, leaving Veronica standing in the living room, her wine glass trembling in her hand. Johnson found Mary in one of the guest bedrooms, sitting on the edge of a bed that was easily 3 times the size of what she probably had at home. She looked tiny in the enormous room. "Is everything okay?" she asked quietly. That lady seemed really mad. "Everything's fine," Johnson lied. "Are you hungry? Have you eaten dinner?" Mary shook her head. "Mom was supposed to make spaghetti, but then..." She trailed off. "Then she got too sick and you had to take care of her instead." Johnson's chest tightened. "Let's order something. What do you like?" "I don't know. We mostly eat whatever Mom can afford. Rice and beans. Peanut butter sandwiches." Johnson pulled out his phone and opened a food delivery app. "Well, tonight you can have anything you want. Pizza? Burgers? Chinese food." Mary's eyes lit up. "Can I have pizza? With extra cheese?" "You can have pizza with all the cheese in Seattle if you want." While they waited for the food, Johnson made another call. This one to Dr. Richard Collins, his personal physician. "Dr. Collins? It's Johnson Williams. I'm sorry to call so late, but I need a favor. A DNA test. Paternity test specifically. Yes, it's urgent. Tomorrow morning if possible." I'll bring my daughter to your office first thing. Thank you. I appreciate it. He hung up to find Mary watching him carefully. A DNA test, she said. To prove you're my dad? Just a formality. For legal purposes. He sat down next to her on the bed. I already know you're mine, Mary. But having official documentation will help with, well, with a lot of things. Medical decisions, school records, that sort of thing. And it'll prove to the mean lady that Mom wasn't lying. Johnson smiled sadly. Yes, that too. The pizza arrived 20 minutes later. They ate in the massive dining room, Mary's legs swinging under the table because the chairs were too tall for her. She ate 3 slices, more than Johnson had seen her eat all day. This is really good, she said, mouthful of cheese. Mom never orders pizza because it's too expensive. Well, we can order it whenever you want now. Really? Mary's eyes went wide. Even like every day? Maybe not every day. But definitely more than never. After dinner, Johnson helped Mary unpack her small backpack. He hung her few clothes in the closet, they barely took up one rack, and placed her stuffed rabbit on the bed. Do you need anything else? He asked. Pajamas? Toothbrush? I have my toothbrush. And I usually just sleep in a t-shirt. She pulled out a faded, oversized shirt from her backpack. It had a cartoon character on it that Johnson didn't recognize. Okay. Well, the bathroom is right through that door. Do you think you'll be okay sleeping alone? This is a new place. I'll be fine, Mary said, but her voice was small. I'm 9. I'm not a baby. I know you're not. But it's okay to be a little scared in a new place. My room is right across the hall. If you need anything at all, you can come get me. Okay. Mary nodded. She clutched her rabbit tighter. Johnson left her to get ready for bed and went back to the living room. Veronica was gone, probably to the master bedroom. Good. He didn't have the energy for another confrontation tonight. He poured himself a scotch and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Seattle's skyline. The city glittered below him, millions of lights spreading out in every direction. He'd worked for years to get to this view, this life. And in one day it had all shifted. Money and success suddenly seemed less important than the little girl sleeping in his guest room, or the woman fighting for her life in a hospital bed. His phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. We need to talk about this. He didn't respond. Another buzz. You can't just shut me out, Johnson. I deserve better than this. He turned off his phone. Around midnight, Johnson heard a soft knock on his bedroom door. He opened it to find Mary standing there, still clutching her rabbit, tears on her cheeks. I can't sleep, she whispered. Everything's too quiet. At home I can hear the neighbors in the street and Mom breathing in the next room. Here it's just empty. Johnson's heart broke a little. Do you want to sleep in here? I can take the couch. Can you just sit with me for a while? Until I fall asleep? Of course. He followed her back to the guest room and sat in the armchair by the window while Mary climbed into bed. She looked impossibly small in the enormous bed, surrounded by luxury linens and designer pillows. Dad, she said quietly. Can I call you that? Or is it too soon? You can call me whatever you're comfortable with. I want to call you Dad. I've never had a dad before. Well, I had you, but I didn't know it. So it's like having one for the first time. Then Dad is perfect. Dad, can you tell me a story? Mom always tells me stories before bed, but she's not here. Johnson realized he didn't know any children's stories. He never had to. I'm not very good at stories. That's okay. Just tell me about when you and Mom met. She never talks about it. She always gets too sad. So Johnson told her. About meeting Clara at a coffee shop 7 years before Mary was born. About how Clara had spilled her latte all over his laptop and been so apologetic she'd bought him 3 replacement lattes and insisted on paying for any damage. About how they'd started dating, how happy they'd been, how he'd thought she was the one. He left out the painful parts, the breakup, the lies, the 8 lost years. Mary didn't need to hear that tonight. By the time he finished, Mary's breathing had evened out. She was asleep, her rabbit tucked under one arm. Johnson stayed in the chair for a long time, watching his daughter sleep, wondering how he'd missed 9 years of this. How many nights had Clara sat like this, watching Mary sleep, wishing Johnson was there to share it? How many times had Mary asked about her father, and Clara had to explain that he didn't know she existed? He thought about Veronica sleeping in his bed across the hall, and felt nothing but contempt. She'd stolen 8 years from him. 8 years of Mary's life. 8 years of Clara's life. For what? Money? Status? Well, whatever Veronica felt for him, it wasn't love. Love didn't destroy. Love didn't manipulate. Love didn't lie. Johnson finally stood up, tucked the blanket around Mary and went back to his room. Not the master bedroom where Veronica was. One of the other guest rooms. He couldn't bear to sleep next to her tonight. Tomorrow he'd get the DNA test done. And then he'd figure out how to untangle his life from Veronica's, how to be the father Mary deserved, and how to help Clara fight for her life. But tonight he just needed to sleep. The next morning, Johnson woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. It took him a moment to remember he'd slept in a guest room. He checked his phone, 7:30 a.m. Dr. Collins could see them at 9 o'clock. He found Mary already awake, sitting at the dining table in yesterday's clothes, looking lost. "Morning," he said. "Did you sleep okay after I left?" "Yeah. The bed is really comfortable. Like sleeping on a cloud." She paused. "Is Mom awake yet? Can we call her?" "The hospital visiting hours start at 8 o'clock. We'll call then, okay? First, let's get you some breakfast." Johnson opened the massive refrigerator, stocked with organic vegetables, expensive cheeses, champagne, and not much else. Not exactly kid-friendly. "Do you like pancakes?" he asked. Mary nodded enthusiastically. "Me too. But I have to confess something. I have no idea how to make them. I usually just have coffee for breakfast." "Just coffee? That's not a real breakfast." "I know. I'm a terrible adult." He pulled out his phone. "How about we order breakfast? And then we need to go see a doctor for your DNA test." "Will it hurt?" "Just a little poke. You'll barely feel it." They had breakfast delivered, pancakes with syrup and fruit for Mary, coffee and an egg white omelet for Johnson. While they ate, Johnson's phone rang. "Dr. Peterson." "Johnson? Just wanted to give you an update on Clara. She had a stable night. We're starting the first round of treatment this morning." "How is she feeling?" "Nervous but determined." She asked about Mary. "Can you bring her by for a visit?" "We'll come this afternoon. We have an appointment this morning first." After breakfast, Johnson drove Mary to Dr. Collins's private practice in downtown Seattle. It was in a sleek medical building, all glass and steel, nothing like the rundown clinic Clara probably took Mary to. Dr. Collins was warm and professional. He talked to Mary about school and her favorite subjects while he swabbed the inside of her cheek. Then he did the same for Johnson. "I'll have the results rushed," Dr. Collins said. "Should be ready in 3 to 4 days. I'll call you as soon as they come in." "Thank you, Richard." On the drive back, Mary was quiet. Johnson glanced over at her. "What are you thinking about? What if the test says you're not my dad?" "That's not going to happen." "But what if it does? What if Mom was wrong? What if my real dad is someone else?" Johnson pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face her. "Mary, look at me. You have my eyes, my nose, my stubborn chin. You're mine. I know it in here." He tapped his chest. "And no test is going to tell me otherwise." "Okay." Mary's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Okay. Now we have a few hours before we can visit your mom. What do you say we go shopping? Get you some new clothes?" "Really? Really? You can't wear the same outfit every day." They spent the next 2 hours at an upscale children's boutique. Mary was overwhelmed by the choices, hesitant to pick anything expensive. Johnson had to keep encouraging her. "Mary, you can get whatever you want. But this shirt costs $60. That's our food budget for a week." "Not anymore, it isn't. Come on, pick out what you like." By the time they left, Mary had new clothes, new shoes, a new backpack, some books, and a huge smile on her face. Johnson loaded the bags into the car, his heart warm. This, he realized, was what being a father felt like. Not the expensive gifts, though those were nice, but the look on Mary's face. The trust. The joy. The simple act of taking care of someone who depended on you. They arrived at the hospital around 2 p.m. Clara was sitting up in bed, looking pale but alert. Her face lit up when Mary ran in. "Baby. How are you? Did you sleep okay?" "Mom, you should see Dad's apartment. It's huge. And we had pancakes for breakfast. And look," Mary started pulling new clothes out of shopping bags. "Dad bought me all this stuff." Clara's eyes found Johnson's. "Johnson, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did." She needed clothes. "Thank you," Clara whispered. They spent an hour with Clara. Mary chattered about the penthouse, about the shopping trip, about everything except the DNA test. Johnson was grateful. Clara was dealing with enough without worrying about that too. As they were leaving, Clara grabbed Johnson's hand. "Can I talk to you for a minute? Alone?" Johnson asked Mary to wait in the hallway. When she was gone, Clara spoke softly. The nurses told me how much all this is costing. Johnson, it's too much. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm giving. Clara, please just let me do this. Let me help you. Let me make up for the 8 years I wasn't there. Tears streamed down Clara's face. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you being so kind after everything. Stop. You deserve everything good. You've been fighting alone for too long. Let me fight with you now. Clara nodded, unable to speak. 3 days later, the days fell into a rhythm. Johnson worked from home in the mornings while Mary did her remote schoolwork. Clara had already arranged for her to do online classes during the hospital stay. Afternoons were spent visiting Clara. Evenings, Johnson and Mary had dinner together, and he'd sit with her until she fell asleep. Veronica stayed in the master bedroom, emerging only for tense, silent meals that Johnson started avoiding altogether. They hadn't spoken more than a few words since the night Mary arrived. Johnson knew he needed to end it properly, but he was waiting for the DNA results. Once he had proof, there would be no argument. Mary was settling in surprisingly well. She was smart, funny, braver than any 9-year-old should have to be. She talked about her mom constantly, worried constantly, but she never complained. Johnson found himself falling in love with being a father. The way Mary laughed at his terrible jokes. The way she explained her homework to him like he was the student and she was the teacher. The way she trusted him completely without reservation. On the evening of the third day, Dr. Collins called. Johnson? I have your results. Johnson's heart hammered. Mary was in her room doing homework. Veronica was in the master bedroom. He was alone in his office. And? There was a pause. A long pause. Johnson, I don't know how to tell you this, but the test came back negative. According to the DNA analysis, you are not Mary's biological father. The world stopped. That's impossible. I double-checked the results myself. I'm sorry, Johnson. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. Run it again. Johnson. I said run it again. There has to be a mistake. She looks exactly like me. She has my eyes, Sometimes people look similar without being related. I'm sorry. The science doesn't lie. Johnson hung up. He sat in his chair, staring at nothing, feeling like he'd been punched in the gut. Not his daughter. Mary wasn't his daughter. Which meant Clara had lied. Clara had used him, manipulated him, made him believe he had a daughter just to get money for her treatment. Just like Veronica had warned. The office door opened. Veronica stood there, and from her expression, Johnson realized she'd been listening outside the door. I'm sorry, she said, but there was something else in her voice. Relief? Vindication? I know this is hard to hear, but... Get out. Johnson, I'm trying to help. You've been taken advantage of. That woman lied to you, used you, and now... I said get out. Veronica left, closing the door softly behind her. Johnson sat there for a long time, feeling everything he'd built over the past 3 days crumbling around him. The bond with Mary. The hope for Clara's recovery. The fantasy of a family. All of it based on a lie. There was a soft knock on the door. Mary's voice. Dad? Are you okay? I heard yelling. Johnson closed his eyes. He couldn't face her. Not right now. Not knowing what he knew. I'm fine, Mary. Just a work call. I'll be out in a bit. Okay. He heard her footsteps retreat. 20 minutes later, there was another knock. This time, Veronica entered without waiting for permission. She held her phone, and her expression was triumphant. I did some research, she said. After what Clara told you about Daniel being just a friend, I found something interesting. She turned her phone to show him a document. This is a marriage certificate. Clara Carter married Daniel Morrison 5 months after you two broke up. They were married for 2 years before getting it annulled. Guess when Mary was born? Johnson looked at the date. 8 months after Clara married Daniel. Clara lied to you, Johnson. Mary is probably Daniel's daughter. She saw you were wealthy and successful. She's desperate for money because of her illness, and she fabricated this whole story. The letter, the tears, all of it, manipulation. Johnson felt sick. How did you get this? Public records. Anyone can access them if they know where to look. The question is, why didn't Clara tell you she'd married someone else? Why did she pretend Mary was yours? Johnson stood up abruptly. I need to go. Where? To the hospital. I need to hear this from Clara. I need to hear her admit what she did. Johnson, wait. But he was already grabbing his keys, already heading for the door. Mary appeared in the hallway. Dad? Where are you going? Are we visiting Mom? Not tonight, Johnson said, his voice harsh. Stay here. But... I said stay here. Mary flinched like he'd hit her. Tears filled her eyes. Johnson saw the hurt on her face and felt a stab of guilt, but the anger was too strong. He'd been played, used, made a fool of. He left without another word. At the hospital, Johnson stormed into Clara's hospital room. She was sleeping but woke when she heard the door slam. "Johnson? What's wrong? Were you married to Daniel?" His voice was cold, controlled. Clara's face went pale. Yes. After you and I broke up, So Mary is his daughter." "What? No." "Johnson, where is this coming from?" He pulled out his phone, showed her the DNA results. "Dr. Collins ran a paternity test. I'm not Mary's father, Clara. Which means you lied to me. You used me. Just like Veronica said you would." "No. Johnson, that's not. Something's wrong with that test. Mary is yours. I've never been with anyone else. Daniel and I got married because I was pregnant and alone and scared, and he offered to help me. But we were never intimate. Ever. The marriage was annulled because it was never consummated. Mary is yours." "Then why does the DNA test say otherwise?" "I don't know. But Johnson, please, you have to believe me. I wouldn't lie about this." "Why would I lie about this?" "For the money," Johnson said flatly. "You're dying. You're desperate. And I'm wealthy. It's a perfect con." Clara was crying now, her monitors beeping faster with her distress. "It's not a con. Johnson, please look at Mary. Really look at her. She's yours. You said so yourself." "I was wrong. I saw what I wanted to see." He turned toward the door. "I'll continue to pay for your treatment. I'm not cruel. But Mary needs to go back to your neighbors. I can't have her in my house anymore." "Johnson, no. Please. She'll be heartbroken. She loves you. She thinks you're her father. Then you should have thought of that before you lied to her. And to me." He left, Clara's sobs following him down the hallway. Back at the penthouse, Johnson returned home to find Mary waiting by the door, still crying. "Dad? What happened? Why are you so angry?" Johnson looked at her, this little girl who'd called him dad, who'd trusted him, who'd been so happy the past 3 days. He should tell her gently. Sit her down, explain carefully. But he couldn't. The hurt was too raw. "Pack your things," he said. "You're going to stay with your mother's neighbor." What? Did I do something wrong?" "Just pack your things, Mary." "But I don't understand. I thought we were a family. I thought you were my dad." "I'm not your dad." The words came out harsher than he intended. The DNA test came back. "We're not related. Your mother lied to both of us." Mary's face crumpled. No, that's not true. Mom wouldn't lie. She said you were my dad. She promised." "Well, she was wrong. Or she lied. Either way, you can't stay here anymore." "But I don't want to leave." "Please. I'll be good, I promise. I won't ask for anything else, I won't." "Mary, stop. This isn't about you being good. This is just how it has to be." Veronica appeared in the hallway, watching the scene with barely concealed satisfaction. Mary saw her and something seemed to click. "It's because of her, isn't it? She doesn't want me here. She's making you send me away." "This has nothing to do with Veronica." "Yes, it does. She hates me. She hates Mom. She's lying to you." "Enough." Johnson's voice was sharp. "Go pack. Now." Mary ran to her room, sobbing. Johnson heard the door slam. He sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. Veronica sat next to him, placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know this is hard. But you did the right thing. You can't let yourself be manipulated by—" "Don't touch me." Johnson shrugged off her hand. "Just don't." Veronica pulled back, her expression flickering between concern and something else. Something that looked almost like triumph. 30 minutes later, Mary emerged with her backpack. Her eyes were red and swollen. She changed back into her old clothes, leaving all the new things Johnson had bought her in the room. "I'm ready," she whispered. The drive to Clara's apartment building was silent except for Mary's quiet crying. Johnson's jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. He told himself he was doing the right thing. He'd been manipulated, used, lied to. He had every right to be angry. But looking at Mary in his rearview mirror, small and broken and clutching her rabbit, he felt like the worst person in the world. He pulled up to the building. Mary didn't move. "Do you have your key?" he asked. "Yes." "Mrs. Margaret knows you're coming?" "I don't know. You didn't let me call her." Johnson sighed. "I'll walk you up. Make sure she's home." They rode the elevator in silence. Knocked on Mrs. Margaret's door. The elderly woman answered, took one look at Mary's tear-stained face, and immediately ushered her inside. Mr. Williams? What happened? Clara said Mary was staying with you? Plans changed. Clara can explain. Thank you for taking her on short notice. He turned to leave, but Mary's voice stopped him. Dad. He looked back. She was standing in Mrs. Margaret's doorway, her rabbit clutched to her chest, tears still streaming down her face. I don't care what the test says. You're still my dad. You'll always be my dad. Johnson felt something crack in his chest. But he didn't let it show. Goodbye, Mary. He left before he could change his mind. Before he could see Mary collapse into Mrs. Margaret's arms, sobbing like her heart was breaking. Because it was. Back in his car, Johnson sat in the parking lot for a long time. His phone buzzed. A text from Mary's number. He'd bought her a cheap phone so they could stay in touch. I love you, Dad. I'm sorry for whatever I did wrong. Please don't hate me. Then another. Mom says the test is wrong. She says you're my real dad and something bad happened to make it say you weren't. Please believe her. And another. I know I'm just a kid and you're a grown-up and you probably know better, but I know you're my dad. I can feel it. Doesn't that count for something? Johnson turned off his phone. He drove home, went straight to his office and poured himself a scotch. Then another. Then another. He was on his fourth when Veronica appeared in the doorway. You did the right thing, she said again. Did I? Johnson's voice was hollow. Because it doesn't feel right. It feels like I just destroyed a little girl who never did anything wrong. She's not your responsibility, Johnson. Her mother lied to you. Maybe. Or maybe the test was wrong. Maybe there was a mistake. Veronica's expression tightened. The test wasn't wrong. Dr. Collins is the best in the city. You said so yourself. Then why does Mary look exactly like me? Why does she have my eyes, my expressions, my stubborn chin? Coincidence. Genetics are strange. People who aren't related can look similar. Johnson studied Veronica. Really studied her. And for the first time he saw something in her eyes. Something that made his blood run cold. How did you get that marriage certificate so quickly? He asked slowly. What? The document about Clara and Daniel. You found it within 20 minutes of me getting the DNA results. How? I told you. Public records. I searched. Public records take time to access. Background checks, record searches, they take days. Unless you already knew where to look. Unless you'd already done the research before tonight. Veronica's face went pale. Johnson, you're being paranoid. Or unless you already knew about the marriage because you're the one who arranged it. 8 years ago. When you broke Clara and me up. Johnson stood up, his mind racing. Clara said she married Daniel because she was pregnant and alone. What if you paid him to marry her? To make her look like she'd moved on, like she'd been unfaithful all along? That's insane. Is it? You orchestrated the photos. You fed me lies. Why wouldn't you go further? Why wouldn't you make absolutely sure Clara and I could never reconcile? You're drunk. You don't know what you're saying. And the DNA test. Johnson's voice was getting louder. You were listening outside my office when Dr. Collins called. You knew the results immediately. Almost like you knew they'd come back negative. Almost like you'd made sure they would. Veronica backed toward the door. Johnson, stop. You're scaring me. Dr. Collins's office. You've been there with me before. For my annual physicals. You know his staff. You know his office manager. Johnson pulled out his phone. What if I call Dr. Collins right now? What if I ask him if anyone contacted his office about my DNA test? What if I ask if the samples could have been tampered with? You're being ridiculous. Why would I tamper with a DNA test? Because you're losing control. Johnson was shouting now. For 8 years you've controlled me. Isolated me. Made sure I never looked back at Clara. And then Mary showed up with that letter, and suddenly everything you'd built was falling apart. So you did what you always do. You lied, you manipulated, you sabotaged. Tears were streaming down Veronica's face now, but Johnson couldn't tell if they were real or another manipulation. I did it because I love you, she cried. Everything I've done has been because I love you. Clara wasn't right for you. She was weak, poor, ordinary. You needed someone like me, someone strong, ambitious, someone who could stand beside you. So you admit it? You sabotaged Clara and me. She wasn't good enough for you? That wasn't your decision to make. Johnson's voice cracked. You took 8 years from me, Veronica. 8 years of my daughter's life. Clara's cancer might have been caught earlier if she'd had access to good health care, if she'd had my insurance, my money. She might not be dying right now if you hadn't torn us apart. I didn't give her cancer. That's not my fault. No, but you made sure she faced it alone. And you made sure Mary grew up without a father. All because you wanted me for yourself. Veronica was sobbing openly now. What was I supposed to do? Just watch you be happy with someone else? Watch you build a life that didn't include me? I've loved you since college, Johnson. Before Clara, before any of them. You were supposed to be mine. Johnson felt disgusted. Disgusted with Veronica, disgusted with himself for not seeing it sooner, disgusted with the entire situation. Get out, he said quietly. What? Get your things and get out of my home. Tonight. Johnson, please? Now. He picked up his phone. I'm calling Dr. Collins. I'm ordering a new DNA test from a different lab, with samples that never leave my sight. And if I find out you tampered with the first test, if I find out you stole 8 more years from me with Mary, I will destroy you. I will press charges. I will make sure everyone knows what you did. Do you understand? Veronica stared at him, her mask finally completely gone. What was left was ugly, desperate, possessive, unhinged. You'll regret this, she hissed. When that test comes back negative too, when you realize Clara really did lie to you, you'll come crawling back. And I won't be waiting. Good. Because I never want to see you again. Veronica turned and stormed out. Johnson heard her in the bedroom, throwing things into suitcases, slamming drawers. 30 minutes later, she was gone. The penthouse felt empty without her. But it didn't feel lonely. Felt clean. Like poison had been drained from the air. Johnson pulled out his phone and turned it back on. 17 text messages from Mary. He read them all, his heart breaking with each one. Please answer me, I'm sorry, I miss you, Mom's crying. She says she didn't lie. I believe her, do you believe her? Please say you believe her, Mrs. Margaret says you might need time to think. Is that true? Are you thinking? I'll wait. I'm good at waiting, I waited my whole life for a dad, I can wait a little longer, I love you. Johnson typed a reply with shaking fingers. Mary, I'm sorry for how I acted. I was hurt and angry and I took it out on you. That was wrong. You didn't deserve that. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to find out the truth. And no matter what that truth is, you'll always be special to me. I promise. The reply came immediately. Does that mean you're my dad again? Johnson stared at the message. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to believe it. But he needed proof first. Real proof. Untainted by Veronica's lies. I don't know yet. But I'm going to find out. Trust me? I trust you, Dad. Johnson closed his eyes. Tomorrow he'd call Dr. Collins. He'd order a new test. He'd watch the samples himself, make sure there was no possibility of tampering. And if Mary really was his daughter? If she was his daughter, he'd spend the rest of his life making up for the 10 years he'd missed. And for the horrible things he'd said tonight. He just hoped it wasn't too late. Johnson didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office, staring at his phone, reading and rereading Mary's texts. Each one was a knife to his heart. Around 3 a.m. a new message came through. Dad, are you awake? Mom's really sick tonight. The nurses are worried. Can you come? Johnson was out the door in minutes. The hospital was eerily quiet at night. His footsteps echoed down the empty corridors as he rushed to Clara's room. A nurse was inside, checking monitors, adjusting IVs. Clara looked worse than he'd ever seen her, pale, sweating, breathing labored. What happened? Johnson demanded. The nurse turned. Her body's having a severe reaction to the chemotherapy. It's not uncommon, but we need to monitor her closely. Are you family? Johnson hesitated. Was he? The DNA test said no. But his heart said something different. Yes, I'm family. The nurse nodded and left them alone. Johnson sat in the chair beside the bed. Clara's eyes fluttered open. Johnson. Her voice was barely a whisper. You came. Mary texted me. She said you were sick. Mary, is she okay? Mrs. Margaret said you brought her back tonight. Said you were upset. Clara, I need to know the truth. And I need you to be completely honest with me, no matter how much it hurts. He pulled out his phone, showed her the DNA results. This test says I'm not Mary's father. Clara's eyes filled with tears. That test is wrong. How can you be sure? Because I've never been with anyone else, Johnson. Ever. You were my first. My only. Even when I married Daniel. Her voice broke. It was never consummated. He knew I was pregnant with your baby. He offered to help me to give Mary a father's name. But I couldn't. I couldn't be with him that way. I still loved you too much. Then why would the test say? I don't know. Clara tried to sit up but fell back, too weak. But I know my body, Johnson. I know my truth. Mary is yours. She's always been yours. Johnson studied her face. The desperation, the fear, the absolute conviction. She was either telling the truth or she was the best liar he'd ever met. Veronica admitted she sabotaged us, he said quietly. 8 years ago. The photos, the lies about you cheating. She orchestrated all of it. Clara closed her eyes. I knew it. I knew she was behind it. She also found your marriage certificate to Daniel suspiciously fast. Like she'd been prepared to use it. Clara's eyes snapped open. You think she tampered with the DNA test? I don't know. But I'm going to find out. I'm ordering a new test tomorrow. A secure one. One she can't touch. And until then? Clara's voice was small, scared. What happens to Mary? Johnson, she's heartbroken. She thinks you hate her. I don't hate her. I could never hate her. Johnson leaned forward, took Clara's hand. It was so cold, so fragile. I'm sorry for what I said tonight. To both of you. I was angry and hurt and I lashed out. That was wrong. You have every right to be angry. If the test is wrong, if someone did tamper with it. Clara's breathing was getting more labored. Johnson, promise me something. Anything. If I don't make it through this treatment, if the cancer wins, promise me you'll take care of Mary. Even if the test says she's not yours. Even if you're not legally obligated. She needs someone. She can't go into the system. Please. Clara. Promise me. The heart monitor started beeping faster. Clara was getting agitated and the nurse stuck her head in the door, concerned. Everything okay? Fine, Johnson said quickly. To Clara, I promise. But you're going to make it through this. You're going to fight and you're going to win. Mary needs her mother. But if I don't, then I'll take care of her. Test or no test, DNA or no DNA. I promise. Clara relaxed slightly. The monitor slowed. She squeezed Johnson's hand with what little strength she had. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for giving us a chance. Johnson stayed with Clara until the sun came up. She drifted in and out of sleep, her body fighting both the cancer and the treatment meant to kill it. He watched her, this woman he'd loved, lost, and maybe was finding again, and wondered how everything had gotten so twisted. Around 6 a.m. his phone buzzed. A text from Mary. Is Mom okay? The nurses won't tell me anything because I'm just a kid. Johnson replied, she's stable. I'm with her now. She had a rough night but she's resting. Can I come see her? Not yet. Let her sleep a bit. I'll call you when she wakes up. Okay. Dad. Thank you for going to her. Even if you're mad at us, thank you for not letting her be alone. Johnson stared at that message for a long time. Even if you're mad at us. Like Mary had already accepted that she might not be his daughter, but she still called him Dad. Still thanked him. Still loved him. What kind of monster had he become last night to hurt a child like that? At 7 a.m. he called Dr. Collins. Johnson? It's early. I need you to run another paternity test. Today. There was a pause. Johnson, we just ran one. The results were conclusive. I think they were tampered with. That's impossible. My lab has the highest security standards. Veronica had access to your office. She's been there with me before. She knows your staff. Another pause, longer this time. You think Veronica interfered with the test? I think it's possible. And I need to know for sure. Can you run another one? Different lab, different process, samples that never leave my sight. Dr. Collins sighed. Yes. I can send the samples to a lab in New York. They're completely independent, no connection to my practice. But Johnson, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that the first test was correct. I know. But I need to be sure. Come by at noon. Bring Mary. We'll do new swabs and I'll personally drive them to New York myself. Thank you, Richard. Johnson hung up and texted Mary. Can Mrs. Margaret bring you to Dr. Collins's office at noon? We're doing another test. The response was immediate. Really? You believe, Mom? I believe there might have been a mistake. That's all. Don't get your hopes up too high, okay? Okay. But I'm hoping anyway. I can't help it. Johnson smiled despite everything. That was Mary, eternally hopeful, even when the world gave her every reason not to be. He looked at Clara, still sleeping. The morning light made her look younger, less sick. He could see traces of the woman he'd fallen in love with 9 years ago. Beautiful, kind, full of life. How much time did she have left? Weeks? Months? Dr. Peterson had said the treatment was aggressive, but even with the best care, stage 4 cancer was brutal. Johnson pulled out his laptop and started researching. Experimental treatments, clinical trials, alternative therapies. Money was no object. If there was something out there that could save Clara, he'd find it. Around 9 a.m., Clara woke up. She looked better, the crisis had passed. You're still here, she said, surprised. I promised Mary I'd stay until you woke up. How is she? Really? Johnson hesitated. Heartbroken. Scared. Trying to be brave. He looked at Clara. She's remarkable, you know. Despite everything, the poverty, your illness, not having a father, she's smart, kind, hopeful. You did an amazing job raising her. Tears slipped down Clara's cheeks. I tried. God, I tried so hard. But I always felt like I was failing her. She deserved so much more than I could give her. She had love. That's more than a lot of kids get. But love doesn't pay for school supplies. Love doesn't put food on the table. Love doesn't. Clara's voice broke. There were nights I had to choose between paying the electric bill and buying groceries. Nights Mary went to bed hungry because I couldn't afford both. What kind of mother does that make me? The kind who did the best she could with what she had. The kind who fought every day to keep her daughter safe and happy. Clara, you're not a failure. You're a hero. Clara shook her head. I'm dying, Johnson. Some hero. You're fighting. That's heroic. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Clara spoke quietly. What happens if the new test says you're not Mary's father? What happens to us? Johnson had been thinking about that all night. I don't know. But I made you a promise and I keep my promises. Mary won't go into the system. I'll make sure she's taken care of. Even if she's not yours? Even then. Clara's expression was unreadable. You've changed. The Johnson I knew 9 years ago wouldn't have said that. The Johnson you knew 9 years ago didn't know what it was like to lose a child he never knew he had. Or to see that child's heart break because of his own cruelty. You weren't cruel. You were hurt. I was cruel, Johnson said firmly. I said terrible things to Mary. I made her feel like she'd done something wrong when she was completely innocent. That was cruel, Clara. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Before Clara could respond, there was a knock on the door. Dr. Peterson entered with his tablet. Good morning, Clara. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. That's the chemo. It's brutal, but it's working. Your latest blood work shows the tumor markers are already starting to drop. Not by much, but it's early days. This is a good sign. Clara's eyes lit up. Really? It's working? So far, yes. We've got a long fight ahead of us, but you're responding to the treatment. That's what we want to see. Dr. Peterson glanced at Johnson. Mr. Williams, can I speak with you outside for a moment? Johnson followed him into the hallway. I wanted to talk to you about Clara's prognosis, Dr. Peterson said once they were alone. The treatment is working, but her body is weak. The cancer has done significant damage. Even if we get it into remission, her recovery is going to be long and difficult. She'll need around-the-clock care, physical therapy, regular monitoring. What are you saying? I'm saying that apartment she's living in, no elevator, 4th floor walk-up, no air conditioning, it's not suitable for someone in her condition. She needs somewhere more accommodating. Somewhere with help available. Johnson's mind was already racing. I have a penthouse. Elevator access, spare bedrooms, space for a live-in nurse if needed. Dr. Peterson raised an eyebrow. You're offering to have Clara move in with you? She's the mother of... Johnson paused. She's Mary's mother. And Mary is staying with me. It makes sense for them to be together. Even if the DNA test proves Mary isn't your daughter? Even then. Dr. Peterson studied him for a long moment. You're a good man, Mr. Williams. Clara and Mary are lucky to have you. Johnson wasn't so sure about that. But he nodded anyway. Back in the room, Clara was sitting up slightly, looking more alert. What did Dr. Peterson want? She asked. To tell me you're going to need help when you're discharged. More help than you can get in your current apartment. Clara's expression closed off. I'll manage. I always do. Or you and Mary could move in with me. Clara stared at him. What? I have more than enough space. You'd have your own room, access to whatever care you need. Mary would be there. It makes sense. Johnson, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. And before you argue, think about Mary. She needs her mother. And she needs stability. Moving in with me gives her both. But if the test comes back and you're not her father, then we'll figure it out. But until then and even after, you both need help. Let me help you, Clara. Please. Clara was crying again. She seemed to cry so easily these days. The illness, the medication, the overwhelming emotion of everything. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Thank you. Johnson checked his watch. Almost 11 a.m. I need to go pick up Mary. We have an appointment with Dr. Collins at noon for the new DNA test. Is there anything you need before I leave? Just. Clara reached out and took his hand. Just don't give up on us. No matter what the test says. Don't give up. I won't, Johnson promised. And as he left the hospital, heading toward Mrs. Margaret's apartment to collect Mary, he realized he meant it. Whether Mary was his biological daughter or not, she'd already claimed a piece of his heart. And he wasn't going to let her go without a fight. Mrs. Margaret's apartment was small but immaculately clean. She opened the door with a warm smile that didn't quite hide the concern in her eyes. Mr. Williams. Mary's been waiting for you. Mary appeared behind her, wearing the same old clothes from yesterday. She'd left all the new things at the penthouse. Hi, Dad, she said quietly, uncertainly. Like she wasn't sure she was still allowed to call him that. Hi, sweetheart. Ready to go? Mary nodded and grabbed her backpack. She hugged Mrs. Margaret goodbye, and the elderly woman whispered something in her ear that made Mary nod seriously. In the car, Mary was silent. She sat in the back seat, staring out the window, clutching her rabbit. You can sit in the front if you want, Johnson said. That's okay. I'm fine back here. Johnson glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She looked small, scared, nothing like the happy, chattering girl from a few days ago. Mary, I'm sorry about last night. It's okay. No, it's not. I said terrible things. I hurt you. That wasn't okay. Mary was quiet for a moment. Then, were you lying? When you said you weren't my dad. The test said I wasn't. But I think the test might have been wrong. So you might still be my dad? Maybe. And if you're not? Her voice was so small, so scared. Johnson pulled the car over to the side of the road. He turned around to face her. Mary, listen to me very carefully. Even if this test comes back and says I'm not your biological father, even if the science says we're not related, you're still going to be special to me. You're still going to be important. And I'm still going to make sure you and your mom are taken care of. Do you understand? But you won't be my dad. Johnson struggled with how to answer that. Family isn't always about blood, Mary. Sometimes it's about choice. About loving someone and choosing to be there for them. So you choose me? Even if I'm not really yours? Yes, Johnson said and realized he meant it completely. I choose you. Mary burst into tears. She scrambled over the center console and into Johnson's arms, sobbing into his shoulder. He held her tight, his own eyes burning. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm sorry if I'm not yours. I'm sorry Mom might have been wrong. I'm sorry for crying. I'm sorry. Shoo. You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. This is all adult mess, adult mistakes. None of it is your fault. They sat like that for a long time, father and maybe daughter, holding each other in a car on the side of the road while traffic rushed past. Finally, Mary pulled back, wiping her eyes. We should go. We're going to be late for Dr. Collins. Right. Okay. Johnson helped her back into her seat, made sure her seatbelt was fastened. As he pulled back onto the road, Mary spoke again. Dad? Can I ask you something? Anything. That lady who was at your house, Veronica. Is she your wife? No. She was my girlfriend. But we broke up last night. Because of me? Because of lies she told. Because I finally saw who she really was. Mrs. Margaret says some people wear masks. She says they pretend to be nice but really they're mean underneath. Was Veronica wearing a mask? Johnson thought about that. Yes, I think she was. Mom never wears a mask. Even when she's sick and sad, she's still really her. That's how I know she's not lying about you being my dad. Mom doesn't know how to lie. Out of the mouths of babes, Johnson thought. Mary had seen in one day what he'd been too blind to see in 8 years. They arrived at Dr. Collins's office a few minutes before noon. The receptionist showed them straight back to Dr. Collins's private office. Mary, Mr. Williams? Right on time. Dr. Collins smiled warmly at Mary. How are you feeling today, young lady? Okay, I guess. Nervous. Nothing to be nervous about. Just a quick swab, same as last time. It won't hurt at all. Dr. Collins performed the swab on both of them, carefully sealing each sample in separate containers. He wrote on the labels himself, signed and dated them. I'm going to drive these to New York myself this afternoon, he explained. The lab there will process them in a secure environment. No one else will touch these samples except the technicians. Results should be back in 72 hours. 3 days, Mary said quietly. 3 days, Dr. Collins confirmed. Can you be patient for 3 more days? Mary nodded, but Johnson could see the anxiety in her eyes. 3 days might as well be 3 years to a 9-year-old. As they left the office, Mary slipped her hand into Johnson's. Dad? Can we go see Mom now? Actually, I have a surprise for you. About your mom. What kind of surprise? When she gets out of the hospital, she's going to come live with us. Both of you are. Together. Mary stopped walking. She stared up at Johnson with wide eyes. Really? Even if the test says. Even then, Johnson confirmed. Your mom needs help and you need to be with your mom. So yes, really? Mary's face broke into the biggest smile Johnson had seen since this whole thing started. She threw her arms around his waist. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is the best surprise ever. Johnson hugged her back, hoping desperately that the test would confirm what his heart already knew. That this little girl with her brown eyes and stubborn chin and unshakable faith was his daughter. His real daughter. Because if she wasn't, if Veronica had been telling the truth and Clara had somehow been mistaken, Johnson wasn't sure how he'd survive losing her twice. They spent the afternoon at the hospital with Clara. Mary climbed onto the bed beside her mother, careful not to disturb the IVs, and chattered about the new DNA test, about moving in with Johnson, about everything being okay again. Clara caught Johnson's eye over Mary's head. Her expression was cautious, hopeful, but also terrified. She mouthed, "Thank you." After Mary fell asleep in the chair beside Clara's bed, Clara spoke softly. The detective called me today. About the restraining order Veronica is trying to file against you. You too. Me too. She claims we're both harassing her, trying to extort money. She's building a case, Johnson. Let her. My lawyer is investigating her. If she tampered with that DNA test, she's going to face charges. Clara held his gaze steadily. You are her father, Johnson. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Then we'll prove it. And once we do, Veronica is finished. The third day crawled by. Johnson tried to work but couldn't focus. Mary was anxious, jumping every time his phone rang. Finally, late in the afternoon, Dr. Collins called. Johnson? I have the results from New York. Johnson's heart hammered. And? The test confirms with 99.9% certainty that you are Mary's biological father. Relief flooded through him. You're sure? Completely sure. There's no doubt, Johnson. Mary is your daughter. What about the first test? Dr. Collins's voice was grim. We found a gap in our security footage, 15 minutes where the camera in the sample storage room went offline. And Johnson, Veronica Brown signed in as a guest that day. She claimed she was picking up your prescription refill. I didn't have a prescription to pick up. I know. I'm reporting this to the medical board and cooperating fully with your lawyer's investigation. Johnson closed his eyes. Send me the official results. I need to show Clara and Mary. He immediately called Mary. She answered on the first ring. Dad? Did Dr. Collins call? He did, sweetheart. Pack your things. We're going to the hospital to tell your mom the good news together. Good news? Does that mean? It means I'm your dad, Mary. Officially, biologically, no doubt about it. You're mine. Mary's scream of joy was so loud Johnson had to hold the phone away from his ear. 20 minutes later, they burst into Clara's hospital room. Mary was clutching the official test results, tears streaming down her face. Mom? Dad's my dad. The test says so. 99.9%. Clara read the results, tears flowing freely. She looked at Johnson, and the expression on her face was pure joy mixed with vindication. I told you, she whispered. Johnson sat on the edge of Clara's bed. Mary climbed up between them, and for a moment they were a family, father, mother, daughter, together at last. What happens now? Clara asked. Now Veronica faces the consequences of what she did. My lawyer is building a case. She'll be angry. Desperate people do dangerous things. Let her be angry. She can't hurt us anymore. But even as Johnson said it, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You're going to regret this, Johnson. All of you. Johnson deleted it without showing Clara or Mary. He'd deal with Veronica's threats later. Right now, he just wanted to enjoy this moment, his first official day as Mary's father. Nothing was going to ruin that. Not even Veronica Brown. 2 days later, Johnson was in his office working when his phone rang. Detective Martinez. Mr. Williams? I wanted to update you. We've reviewed the evidence regarding Ms. Brown's restraining order request. And? It's been denied. The text messages she provided as evidence were fabricated. The metadata doesn't match. We're now investigating her for filing a false police report. Good. There's more. Based on information from your lawyer and Dr. Collins, we're opening a criminal investigation into evidence tampering. Ms. Brown may face serious charges. Johnson felt a grim satisfaction. Thank you, detective. After he hung up, Mary appeared in the doorway. Was that about Veronica? Yes. She tried to lie to the police, but they figured it out. Good. She shouldn't be allowed to hurt people and get away with it. Mary came over and climbed into his lap, something she'd started doing more often. Dad? When is Mom coming home? Dr. Peterson says maybe next week if she keeps improving. And then we'll all live here together? Like a real family? Like a real family, Johnson confirmed. Mary was quiet for a moment. I used to dream about this. Having a dad, having a nice home, Mom being healthy. I thought it was just pretend. But it's real now. Johnson hugged her tighter. It's real, sweetheart. And I'm going to make sure it stays real. That evening, Johnson received a call from Marcus. Johnson, we have a problem. Veronica's disappeared. What do you mean disappeared? She's not at the hotel where she was staying. Her phone's off. Her credit cards haven't been used in 2 days. The police want to question her about the evidence tampering, but they can't find her. A chill ran down Johnson's spine. You think she ran? Either that or she's planning something. Johnson, I think you should hire security. Just until she's located. You think she's dangerous? I think she's desperate. And desperate people are unpredictable. Johnson looked toward Mary's room where she was doing homework. I'll call a security company tonight. Good. And Johnson? Be careful. Watch your back. After Marcus hung up, Johnson sat in his office staring at his phone. That threatening text from 2 days ago suddenly felt more ominous. You're going to regret this, Johnson. All of you. He pulled up his contacts and called a private security firm he'd used before for corporate events. Within 2 hours, a security consultant was at his penthouse, assessing vulnerabilities and recommending 24-hour protection. Is this really necessary? Mary asked, watching the security expert check the windows. Just a precaution, sweetheart. Because of Veronica? Johnson didn't want to scare her, but he also didn't want to lie. Yes. She's upset about the breakup and the investigation. We're just being careful. Mary looked worried. Will she try to hurt us? No. The security is just to make sure she doesn't bother us. That's all. But that night, as Johnson lay in bed unable to sleep, he wondered if that was true. How far would Veronica go to maintain control? What was she capable of when everything she'd built was falling apart? He got his answer the next morning. Johnson woke to his phone ringing at 6 a.m. Dr. Peterson. Johnson, there's been an incident at the hospital. Johnson sat bolt upright. What kind of incident? Someone tried to access Clara's room last night. A woman matching Veronica Brown's description. Security stopped her, but she got away before police arrived. Is Clara okay? She's fine. Shaken but fine. I've increased security on her floor and I've contacted the police. But Johnson, I think you should get down here. Johnson was dressed and out the door in minutes. He left Mary with the security guard who'd stayed overnight, promising he'd be back soon. At the hospital, he found Clara surrounded by nurses and a police officer taking a statement. Johnson. Clara reached for his hand when she saw him. She was trembling. Veronica was here. She tried to get into my room. What did she want? I don't know. The nurse said she was dressed in scrubs trying to blend in. But someone recognized her from the photos the police circulated. When security approached her, she ran. The police officer turned to Johnson. Mr. Williams, do you have any idea where Ms. Brown might be? No. I haven't spoken to her since she moved out. We need to find her before she does something we'll all regret. Based on her behavior, we're treating her as potentially dangerous. I'm recommending protection for both you and Ms. Carter. Clara squeezed Johnson's hand harder. I'm scared. What if she comes back? What if she tries to hurt Mary? She won't get near Mary. I have security at the penthouse. And I'm not leaving you alone here. Dr. Peterson cleared his throat. Actually, I think it might be time to discharge Clara. She's stable enough to continue treatment as an outpatient. She'd be safer at your home with security than here where anyone can access the hospital. Then let's do it. Today. Within hours, the discharge was arranged. Clara was weak and still needed help walking, but she was mobile enough to leave. Johnson helped her into his car while a security escort followed them. Mary was waiting at the penthouse, practically bouncing with excitement. Mom, you're home. You're really home. Clara hugged her daughter, tears streaming down her face. I'm home, baby. Johnson helped Clara to the guest room that had been prepared for her. A hospital bed borrowed from Dr. Peterson, medical equipment, everything she might need. But Clara stopped in the doorway. It's beautiful, she whispered. Johnson, this is too much. Nothing is too much. You need to rest and get better. This room has everything for that. Over the next few days they settled into a routine. A nurse came twice daily to check on Clara and administer her medications. Mary helped her mother with small tasks, bringing her water, reading to her, just sitting with her. Johnson worked from home, never far from either of them. But Veronica's shadow hung over everything. She still hadn't been found. Then 1 week after Clara came home, Johnson received a package. No return address. Inside was a letter in Veronica's handwriting. Johnson, you've destroyed everything. My life, my reputation, my future. All because of a woman who lied to you and a child who might not even be yours. You chose them over me, over 8 years together. You'll regret this choice. They'll regret it too. You think you've won, but this isn't over. Not even close. Johnson immediately called Detective Martinez and forwarded the letter. She promised to intensify the search. That night, Johnson couldn't sleep. He got up around 2 a.m. and checked on Mary, sleeping peacefully with Mr. Whiskers curled beside her. Then he checked on Clara, who was also asleep, her breathing steady. Everything seemed fine. Quiet. Safe. But Johnson couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. That Veronica wasn't done yet. And he was right. The next morning would change everything. The alarm woke Johnson at 6 a.m. He went through his morning routine, shower, coffee, checking emails, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy despite the constant undercurrent of anxiety about Veronica. Mary wandered into the kitchen around 7, still in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Morning, Dad. Morning, sweetheart. Want some breakfast? Can I have pancakes again? You can have pancakes every day if you want. While Johnson cooked, his phone rang. Detective Martinez. Mr. Williams, we've located Veronica Brown. Johnson's grip tightened on the spatula. Where? She's at Seattle Medical Center. In the emergency room. What? Why? Apparent overdose. Pills and alcohol. A hotel maid found her and called 911. She's stable, but... Detective Martinez paused. She's asking to see you. Absolutely not. I understand. But Mr. Williams, she's making claims. About the DNA test, about Clara, about a lot of things. She says she has information that could change everything. She says she'll only talk to you. Johnson looked at Mary, happily munching on a pancake, completely unaware of the conversation. I'll be there in an hour. He called the nurse to come early and stay with Clara and Mary, then headed to the hospital with his security guard following discreetly behind. Detective Martinez met him outside the emergency room. She's in room 4. I'll be right outside the door. If you feel uncomfortable at any point, just leave. Johnson nodded and entered the room. Veronica looked terrible. Her normally perfect hair was matted, her face pale and blotchy from crying. And 4 dripped into her arm and monitors beeped steadily beside the bed. Johnson, she whispered when she saw him. You came. You have 5 minutes. The detective said you had information. Veronica's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For everything. The photos of Clara, the lies, tampering with the DNA test, all of it. I destroyed your life because I was obsessed with you. I already know all of this. If that's all you wanted to say. Wait. Veronica struggled to sit up. There's more. Things you don't know. About Clara's marriage to Daniel. Johnson's jaw tightened. What about it? I didn't just find those marriage records, Johnson. I arranged the marriage. I paid Daniel Morrison $15,000 to marry Clara. The room seemed to tilt. You what? After you broke up with her, Clara was pregnant and desperate. I found Daniel, an old college friend of hers who was struggling financially. I offered him money to marry her, to make it look like she'd moved on, like maybe the baby was his. I thought if you ever tried to reconcile with her, you'd see she was married to someone else and give up. Johnson felt sick. You manipulated her entire life. I manipulated everything. The annulment 2 years later? I arranged that too. Paid Daniel even more to leave and never contact Clara again. I wanted her alone, struggling, so if you ever found out about Mary, Clara would look like a failure. Like someone unworthy of you. You're a monster. I know. Veronica was sobbing now. I know what I am. But Johnson, I loved you. I've loved you since we were in college together. I watched you fall for Clara and it destroyed me. When I finally had a chance to be with you, I took it. I did terrible things to keep you. And then you tried to hurt Clara at the hospital. Why? Veronica's face crumpled. I was going to beg her to leave. To take Mary and disappear. I was going to offer her money, a lot of money, to just go away and leave you alone. But I never got the chance to talk to her. Security caught me first. Johnson stared at this woman he'd spent 8 years with. How had he never seen the depth of her obsession? The lengths she'd go to? Is there anything else? He asked coldly. Just. Veronica reached out toward him, but Johnson stepped back. Just that I'm sorry. I know you'll never forgive me. I know I destroyed everything. That's why I tried to end it. I couldn't live with what I'd done. That's not my problem, Veronica. You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences. He turned to leave. Johnson, wait. There's one more thing. About Daniel. Johnson paused at the door. What about him? He's in Seattle. He arrived 3 days ago. I called him. Told him about Mary, about the DNA results. I thought maybe if he showed up claiming to be Mary's father, it would cause enough confusion that you'd. She trailed off. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Johnson left without another word. Outside the room, Detective Martinez was waiting. Did you get all that? Johnson asked. Every word. We're recording with her consent. This is enough to press formal charges. Conspiracy, fraud, evidence tampering, stalking, harassment. She's looking at serious prison time. Good. Johnson felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. Detective, she mentioned Daniel Morrison. Said he's in Seattle. We'll locate him. If he's planning to interfere, we need to know. Johnson drove back to the penthouse, his mind racing. Daniel was in Seattle. Veronica had called him, fed him information. What was Daniel planning to do with it? When he arrived home, Clara was in the living room looking stronger than she had in days. The nurse had helped her shower and dress in real clothes instead of pajamas. Mary was doing homework at the dining table. Johnson? You look upset. What happened? Johnson sat down beside Clara and told her everything. Veronica's confession, the arranged marriage, Daniel being in Seattle. Clara's face went white. She paid Daniel to marry me? $15,000. Then paid him again to leave. I always wondered why he offered to help me. We weren't that close in college. And then why he suddenly wanted an annulment out of nowhere. Clara covered her face with her hands. My entire life has been manipulated by her. Not anymore. She's facing criminal charges. She'll be locked up for years. But Daniel? Johnson, what if he tries to claim Mary is his? What if he causes problems? He can't. The DNA test proves Mary is mine. But what if he lies? What if he produces some fake evidence? What if? Johnson took Clara's hands. Clara, stop. We have proof. Scientific, undeniable proof. Nothing Daniel says or does can change that. But Clara's fear was contagious. Johnson couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over yet. His phone rang that evening. Unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Mr. Williams? A man's voice, unfamiliar. This is Daniel Morrison. I believe we need to talk. Johnson's blood ran cold. I have nothing to say to you. I think you do. I'm standing outside your building right now. Come down and talk to me or I'll start making phone calls. To newspapers, to gossip blogs, to anyone who'll listen to my story about how you stole my wife and daughter. Clara was never your wife in any real sense. Anne Mary is proven to be my daughter. Proven how? With a DNA test? Tests can be wrong, Mr. Williams. Or tampered with. The public doesn't need proof. They just need a good story. Rich CO steals dying woman and her child from her devoted husband. That's the kind of story that goes viral. Johnson looked at Clara and Mary through the doorway. Both were watching him, sensing something was wrong. I'll be down in 5 minutes, Johnson said quietly. But Daniel? If you think you can blackmail me, you're making a serious mistake. He hung up and turned to his security guard. There's a man outside the building. Daniel Morrison. I'm going down to talk to him, but I want you nearby. If anything seems off, intervene. Johnson, no, Clara said, standing up. Don't go down there. He's dangerous when he's cornered. I learned that during our marriage. He hurt you. Not physically. But emotionally, he was cruel when he didn't get what he wanted. Please don't go. I have to. If I don't, he'll make good on his threats. Our lives will become a media circus. Mary will be caught in the middle of it. Johnson took the elevator down to the lobby. Through the glass doors, he could see Daniel Morrison standing on the sidewalk. He was in his late 30s, well-dressed, handsome in a polished way. He smiled when he saw Johnson approaching. Mr. Williams. Thanks for coming down. You have 2 minutes? Talk. Daniel's smile widened. Straight to business. I like that. Here's the situation. Veronica Brown contacted me 3 days ago. Told me all about you and Clara and this miraculous daughter who suddenly appeared. She offered me money to come here and cause problems for you. And you took it. Of course I took it. Do you know how much money Veronica has? I should say. She liquidated everything, stocks, bonds, her trust fund. $5 million, Mr. Williams. That's what she paid me to destroy your happy little family. Johnson's fists clenched. What do you want? More money. Veronica's $5 million is nice, but you have more. Much more. So here's my offer. You pay me $10 million and I disappear. Forever. No media stories, no custody claims, no problems. I just vanish. And if I refuse? Then tomorrow morning I hold a press conference. I tell the world that Mary is my daughter from my marriage to Clara. I show the marriage certificate, the timeline of Mary's birth, 8 months after our wedding. I cry about how you used your wealth and power to steal my family. I demand custody rights. Even if the DNA test proves you're the biological father, the legal battle will take years. And the whole time Mary will be caught in the middle. Is that what you want for her? Johnson studied Daniel carefully. The man was smooth, confident, clearly used to manipulation. But there was something desperate in his eyes. Something that suggested he wasn't as in control as he pretended to be. Here's my counteroffer, Johnson said quietly. You get nothing. Not a dollar. You disappear anyway or I have you arrested for extortion. Detective Martinez is already looking for you. One phone call and you're in custody. Daniel's smile faltered. You're bluffing. Am I? Veronica confessed everything this morning. The arranged marriage, the payoff, all of it. It's all on record. You're an accomplice to fraud, Daniel. You might want to check with a lawyer about what that means for you. I had a contract with Clara. A legal marriage. A marriage you entered under false pretenses for money. That's fraud. And now you're trying to extort me. That's another crime. Johnson pulled out his phone. Last chance. Walk away now or I call the detective. For the first time, fear flashed across Daniel's face. You don't understand. I need that money. I have debts, serious debts. The kind of debts where people get hurt if they're not paid. Then I suggest you call the police. Because you're not getting money from me. Daniel's composure cracked completely. Please. You don't understand. These people, they'll kill me if I don't pay. Veronica promised me enough to clear my debts and start over. But now she's in the hospital, her accounts are frozen, and I have nothing. I'm desperate here. That's not my problem. Make it your problem. Help me and I'll disappear. I'll sign whatever you want. Legal documents saying I have no claim to Mary, no claim to Clara. I'll testify against Veronica if you need me to. Just help me. Johnson considered this. Daniel was pathetic, desperate, but he could still cause problems. A media circus, legal battles, stress on Clara and Mary, all things Johnson wanted to avoid. How much do you owe? $300,000. Maybe a bit more with interest. I'll give you $200,000. Not a penny more. But you sign legal documents first, prepared by my lawyer, relinquishing any and all claims to Mary or Clara. You testify against Veronica if needed. And you leave Seattle tonight. If I ever see you again, if you ever contact my family again, I'll have you arrested. Deal? Daniel nodded frantically. Deal. Yes. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it to protect my family from the mess you and Veronica created. Johnson called Marcus and explained the situation. Within 2 hours, Daniel was in Marcus's office, signing documents. By midnight, $2 million had been wired to an account to pay off Daniel's debts, and Daniel Morrison was on a red-eye flight to somewhere far away. Johnson returned home exhausted. Clara was still awake, waiting for him. What happened? Johnson told her everything. You paid him $200,000? Clara looked shocked. It was worth it to make him go away. To protect you and Mary from the circus he would have created. Johnson, that's so much money? Clara, stop. Money doesn't matter. What matters is that he's gone. Veronica's going to prison. And we can finally move forward without looking over our shoulders. Clara started crying big, relieved sobs. Johnson held her, and for the first time in weeks he felt like maybe things were actually going to be okay. It's over, he whispered. It's finally over. But as he said it, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered that it wasn't quite over yet. Not until Veronica was officially charged and sentenced. Not until Clara was healthy again. Not until they were truly, finally safe. 3 months later. Johnson stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, watching the sunrise paint Seattle's skyline in shades of gold and pink. Behind him, he could hear Mary's laughter and Clara's softer voice responding. The sound of his family. His family. 3 months had passed since Daniel disappeared. 3 months since Veronica had been formally charged with fraud, evidence tampering, stalking, and conspiracy. Her trial was set for next month, but Johnson had already moved on. She was no longer his concern. "Dad, breakfast is ready," Mary called from the kitchen. Johnson turned to find Clara standing at the stove, flipping pancakes. She'd gained weight, her hair was growing back in soft curls after the chemo, and the color had returned to her cheeks. Dr. Peterson called it a miracle. The cancer was in complete remission. Johnson called it determination. Clara had fought like hell and she'd won. "You're supposed to be resting," Johnson said, coming up behind her. "I've been resting for 3 months. I'm making my daughter breakfast." Clara turned and smiled at him, that same smile that had made him fall in love with her 9 years ago. "Besides, you can't cook pancakes to save your life." "That's true," Mary chimed in, setting the table. She was wearing one of her new school uniforms. She'd started at a private school last month and was thriving. "Dad burns everything." "I don't burn everything," Johnson protested. "You burned toast last week," Clara said. "Toast is harder than it looks." They ate breakfast together, the morning sun streaming through the windows. Mr. Whiskers sat on Mary's lap, purring contentedly and begging for scraps. After breakfast, Mary went to her room to finish some homework. Clara and Johnson cleaned up together, moving around the kitchen with an easy familiarity that had developed over the past months. "Johnson," Clara said quietly, "I've been thinking. About us. About what happens next." She dried her hands on a towel and turned to face him. "I'm getting better. Dr. Peterson says in another month or 2, I'll be strong enough to live on my own again. Mary and I could get our own place." "No, Johnson." "Clara, do you want to leave?" She hesitated. "I don't know. I don't want to overstay our welcome. You've done so much for us already." "That's not what I asked. Do you want to leave?" Clara looked down. "No. But I don't want to assume." Johnson took her hands. "Clara, I've been thinking too. About us. About our family. About how much I lost 8 years ago and how lucky I am to have gotten a second chance." He took a deep breath. "I don't want you and Mary to leave. Ever. I want you to stay. Both of you. Permanently. Johnson. I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. I know it's too soon and you need time and we need to rebuild what we had. But Clara, I love you. I never stopped loving you. And I want the chance to prove it. To court you properly this time. To do things right." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "You love me? I've always loved you. Even when I thought I hated you, even when I was with Veronica, some part of me always loved you. And now that I have you back, now that I know the truth, I'm not letting you go again." Clara threw her arms around his neck. "I love you too. I never stopped. Even when you wouldn't see me, even when I thought I'd lost you forever, I loved you." They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, while the morning light filled the room with warmth. A throat cleared behind them. Mary stood in the doorway, grinning. "Are you guys kissing? Because if you're going to kiss, I want to watch. I've been waiting for this forever." Clara laughed, pulling away from Johnson. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough to hear Dad say he loves you." Mary came over and hugged both of them. "Does this mean we're staying?" "We're not moving out." "We're staying," Johnson confirmed. "Yes." Mary pumped her fist. "I knew it. Mrs. Margaret said you guys were in love but trying to pretend you weren't. She says grown-ups do that a lot." "Mrs. Margaret is very wise," Johnson said dryly. The rest of the day passed in a blur of happiness. They went to the park, had lunch at Mary's favorite burger place, visited a bookstore where Mary picked out a dozen new books. Just a normal family doing normal things. But it felt extraordinary to Johnson. Every moment felt precious, hard-won. That evening, after Mary was in bed, Johnson and Clara sat on the couch together, her head on his shoulder. "I got a call from Detective Martinez today," Johnson said. "Veronica accepted a plea deal. 8 years in prison for the fraud and evidence tampering charges. She'll be eligible for parole in 5. How do you feel about that?" "I feel nothing. She's not my concern anymore. My concern is here." He kissed the top of Clara's head. "With you and Mary." 8 years, Clara said softly. "The same amount of time she stole from us. Poetic justice, I suppose." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Clara spoke again. "You said you weren't asking me to marry you yet. When will you ask?" Johnson smiled. "Are you rushing me, Miss Carter?" "Maybe. I've waited 9 years for you, Johnson Williams. I think I've been patient enough." "Well, I was thinking, Maybe in 6 months? After you're completely recovered, after Mary settled in her new school, after we've had time to be a real couple again? 6 months, Clara repeated. I can wait 6 months. Good. Because I want to do it right this time. Romantic proposal, big wedding, everything you deserve. I don't need a big wedding. I just need you. You're getting both. 6 months later, the wedding was held in a garden overlooking Puget Sound. Small, intimate, just close friends and family. Mary was the flower girl, wearing a white dress she'd picked out herself, grinning so wide her face hurt. Clara walked down the aisle in a simple ivory gown, her hair fully grown back, her body healthy and strong. She was beautiful, radiant, and Johnson felt his throat tighten as she approached. The ceremony was short and sweet. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promises to love, to honor, to cherish, to never let lies or misunderstandings come between them again. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Johnson pulled Clara close and kissed her thoroughly to the applause and cheers of their guests. Finally, Mary shouted, "You guys took forever." Everyone laughed. At the reception, Johnson watched Clara dance with Mary, both of them laughing, both of them healthy and happy. His wife and his daughter. His family. Dr. Peterson approached with a glass of champagne. "Congratulations, Johnson. You've come a long way from that day you burst into my office with Clara. We all have." Johnson clinked his glass against the doctor's. "Thank you, Peter. For everything. You saved her life. I just did my job. Clara saved her own life by fighting. And you gave her something to fight for." Later, as the sun set over the water, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Johnson found himself alone with Clara for a moment. "Happy?" he asked. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Clara said. "A year ago I thought I was dying. I thought Mary would grow up without either parent. And now," she gestured to the party around them. "Now I have everything." "We have everything," Johnson corrected. Mary ran up to them, breathless and excited. "Dad, Mom, they're about to cut the cake. Come on." She grabbed both their hands and pulled them toward the reception tent. Johnson and Clara exchanged a smile over their daughter's head, a smile full of love, gratitude, and hope for the future. As they walked together into the golden light of the setting sun, surrounded by the people they loved, Johnson thought about the letter that had started it all. Mary's childish handwriting, her desperate plea for help, her unshakable faith that her father would come if she just asked. She'd been right. Love had been more important than the letter. But the letter had brought them together. And now, finally, they were a family. Complete. Oh, forever. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.